Testing, 1, 2, testing.
It is 12 noon exactly. This is Covent Garden in the centre of London. I'm Russ Kane, and you're listening to Men's Radio Station. Joining me, as ever, but a special guest appearance. But first of all, boy wonder producer James Blake doing the pose of magnificence and sporting a haircut that we probably will only, I'm thinking of setting aside 2 hours, James, for the show to discuss Phil Dave's new hairdo.
Thank you.
What you have to understand about Phil Dave, he and I, A, go back forever, but B, he is his hair.
It is true. Thank you, Mr. Kane. It is a great pleasure to be back. Did you miss me?
Well,
I did.
Have you been somewhere?
Never mind. Anyway, but yes, it is true that I have been disappearing off for the last couple of weeks, and I'm hastened to add, geting my hair cut solely. That's not the only reason.
It took 2 weeks.
It did take a while to forage through.
What? And they found Shergar. And fantastic. And Lord Lucan on the floor in the barbers. Phil posted a photo, right, of just this huge mound of hair, like a Mount Kilimanjaro of curly hair. Make up your own gags. And there it was. And so I didn't know what to expect when I came in to the Men's Radio Station studio this morning, armed with my coffee. And it's a new look.
Thank you.
For the gel. It's a new look. Right.
Phil the hair is back on the air.
Did you think of that yourself?
Nope.
No. Okay, fine. Was that from the BBC?
It might have been.
Have you nicked it?
I might have done.
You have done, haven't you?
I'm sorry.
Right. And this is what I wanted to talk about before we kick off with our first guest, who is winging his way from somewhere. I'm facing London Transport.
James's mother just entered the studio. If anyone was watching on Facebook,
trying to say who it was.
No, I wanted people to know this on Facebook in case they saw it and they wondered who that was.
You will see a blonde woman who looks like she's going to a cocktail party, dressed to the nines. This is James Blake, the producer's mum. Sigmund Freud, would write 17 volumes on what goes on in the studio between James and his mum. In all of my working life, I have never seen anything like it. I've never worked with anybody whose mother comes in and says, "Isn't he fabulous?" Every other sentence. I did point out that she wasn't helping her son's career trajectory with this constant love in.
You say that, but at the same time, she is doing absolute wonders for his publicity and boosting his image.
Oh, yes. I mean...
She's my PR lady, you know.
She
really is. Really
and
is.
your mum.
No, brilliant. Very good.
And your mum. Now, a men's radio station where men really have a nervous breakdown sometimes, it would appear. Now, live on air. Last night, and this is what I want to talk about. It's a serious subject, right? So last night I went to the Bridge Theatre and I booked these tickets months and months and months ago, as soon as it was announced, to go and see Dame Maggie Smith in a one-woman show entitled A German Life. I knew nothing about the play, but it was Maggie Smith. That's good enough for me. Her first London stage performance in over 12 years. Very, very big deal. Last night, Saturday, was the opening night. There's no reviews out yet. I'm simply going to say that, by the way, the whole run sold out. I'm simply going to say it was the greatest stage performance I've ever seen in my life. It was amazing. But putting that to one side, because we're not here to discuss that side of it, it was incredible. It's a German Life at the Bridge Theatre. If you can get a ticket, just get it. I mean, just don't even hesitate. Just try and go. And you can read my review. Oh, my God.
Oh, dear. Well, I tell you what.
The cash is in the... Right. And you can read my review on Facebook, on my Facebook page. Now...
Mr. Cohen, I tell you what, Mr. Cohen, why don't you recover yourself a little bit? And whilst he is recovering, of course, we should tell you that if you're out there in listener land and if you would like to join in any of the conversations that we're about to have on Men's Radio Station, we would very much like it if you would take part. So please do give us a call. Don't worry, the telephone jingle has sadly not been eliminated. We will be hearing that in just a moment.
Yes, we will.
But you could always call 0203 290 4411. Mr. Kane, welcome back.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I just was dying there. Now, the theme of the play is as follows, and this is what I wanted to discuss with the gang. It's a one-woman play, and Maggie Smith plays... It's the true story of a German woman born in 1911, and it traces her life as she lives in Berlin. And you can see where I'm going with this. She's born in 1911. The father fights the First World War, comes back, and she's a very ordinary woman. She's basically a typist and a shorthand typist. And of course, then you get into the 1930s, and your stomach's beginning to clench because it is the sheer banality of what she's saying, the sheer ordinariness of events that were to shape the world. And she said it in a very, very, very low-key, conversational way. There's no drama as such. So my question to you, especially in how we live in 2019, is what would you do in the face of such evil? What would you do in your personal life? Because this typist, she works for an insurance firm, she works in a dress shop, and she ends up as one of the secretaries for Goebbels in the Ministry of Propaganda. For her, it's simply a job. For her, she simply wants to increase her monthly pay because her father won't give her any money. And bit by bit, not surprisingly in Berlin, her friends start to disappear. And I just wonder what you would do in the face of evil when it seems like there's absolutely nothing you could do. Phil Dave.
Well, my goodness me, you weren't kidding. This is quite a big subject, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I don't mug about.
Do you want to know what I honestly believe?
Well, no, lie to me, why don't you?
Well, no, because it might not be what everyone wants to hear.
Well, we don't know what everybody wants to hear. I want to know what you think. I don't want to know what everybody wants to hear.
Okay, I think that if something is totally and utterly beyond your control and you are in a position where you have very little choice, as it were, but to carry on doing what you're doing for the sake of, say, maybe you, for your career, your family, your support, whatever it might be, whatever you have to do, even if you are in the face of evil, if you really haven't got any control over what happens and you potentially put your life at risk or yourself at risk for reporting something, I think it's every man to himself.
Well, that's pretty much what happened there. I mean, she starts to date some guy. He drags her off to a meeting, and she didn't even know what the meeting was. And, of course, it was a huge rally. They say to her, have you joined the party? You know, if you want to get on the radio. She works in a radio station, can you believe?
So do I.
Yeah, I know. Well, we all do. And so she joins the party, but she was never asked to show her credentials. I mean, it's just a fascinating thing because bit by bit by bit, you see where this is going. And, of course, there's a wonderful line in it, which is so utterly relevant to 2019 and the complete, total nightmare mess that we're in Britain because of the idiots who are looking after us. And it's just hopeless. she's talking about the propaganda. She says, well, of course, now no one would ever believe propaganda and work and then, vote on it. And the whole audience burst out laughing, as you could well imagine. James Blake.
Quick question. So, is she a Jew?
No,
she's not.
She's absolutely not.
So she's just an average German citizen.
She's a very average German citizen, who ends up living, she's born in Berlin, she lives in Berlin, and right through the war, till the Russians arrive.
See, it's a tough one. It's a tough one, isn't it? Because you're in a very tricky spot. Because on the one hand, it's her livelihood, and she probably needs it. But on the other hand,
well, what could she have done? The thing you come out with saying is, well, yeah, and then she says, well, what did I know? And I was just a secretary. I mean, she didn't say I was following orders because she didn't see anything that was sensitive, particularly. But she knew Goering, and
she knew what was going on. I mean,
no, she says she doesn't. She said they thought they were rehabilitation camps. They were told they were rehabilitation camps.
And apart from anything, I mean, look, and I'm speaking as someone who I am perfectly sure, without knowing this for a fact, had family that was affected by the actions of 1930s Germany. But I would say that I find it very hard to blame everyday citizens who were genuinely going about their everyday life thinking that they were just in an honest job that happened to be at that point in time. So in other words, a secretary who doesn't necessarily know the full understanding. And let's not forget, that was obviously an age where news was not very easily accessible. I know a lot of people dismiss this and they say, oh no, you must have heard it. You have to know what was going on. Well, no, we're talking in a very exposed world in this day and age. We have social media that keeps us abreast with both genuine and, sorry to quote a certain Mr. Trump, fake news. We are very aware of what's happening in our world because it is so instantly shared with all of us. If something abhorrent happens, instantly what do people do? They get out their camera phone, they video it, they post it on social media, there's an inquiry, everyone's dismissed. You know exactly what's going to happen because before it even starts now, because that's the age we live in. Of course, if all of these atrocities were going on behind closed doors and people were not privy to the information that pertained to what was actually happening, I would argue that even as someone who may well have family affected by the Holocaust and all of those actions, that potentially they didn't know what was going on. And why would they?
If you're working for the Minister of Propaganda in Nazi Germany in the 1930s, I'm sure you have some understanding of the propaganda machine and what's being told and what isn't being told.
They don't use the term fake news in this play. It's a brilliant play. But it's clear they're faking it up. So when they had to report atrocities committed, I use the word atrocities from their viewpoint, by the Russians on German citizens, they had to up all the numbers of people dead and raped and everything else.
Exactly.
So she was aware that they were changing the facts.
But even if she knew that, what could you possibly expect someone in that position to do? Either face the prospect, for all they know, of being destroyed by the very regime that she's working for, or speak out and people say, no, you're mad, you're not telling the truth, this just simply isn't the case at all, what on earth are you banging on about, and then therefore lose the job at the very best.
Well, the least would be losing the job, because she knew some people in this play and they put out some pamphlets and they were both guillotined. Not the pamphlets, the people.
So there you have it.
Just for putting out the pamphlets. And
so when you see actions like that, who on earth in their right mind is going to speak out against it? I know that we live in an age now where people are very much for rise against the authorities and power to the people and all of that malarkey. But the truth is that people come to power, they're in power whether you like it or not. It might not necessarily be what you agree with. It might not necessarily be what you particularly voted for if you live in a democratic society. It may not be what you like and the world that you like living in. But the awful truth is sometimes things happen, and I hate the terminology things because it's quite broad, but sometimes decisions are made that are against our will and against our better judgment, but they are ultimately done by people who are in a position of power, and whether we like it or not, that's what happens. And this is what we're seeing. I'm sorry,
Do you see no parallels for what could happen in 2019, 2020 in Britain? Do you see no parallels at all?
I see parallels with certain members of parliament, shall we say, who seem to have quite a lackluster attitudes towards people's genuine concerns, but at the same time, they're the ones in the position of power, not us. So even though I'm not excusing
you wouldn't do anything about it.
What can you do? What on earth can we, as everyday citizens, do about it? I'm not saying that I'm not necessarily against what happens either today or indeed what happened back in the 1930s. But what can everyday people do about it? It is ultimately the people who are in the position of power that have the clues in the title. They have the power. Okay? They're the ones who are in charge. They're the ones who make the key decisions that could ultimately affect everyday lives along the lines of yours and mine. But there's not necessarily anything we can do about it until a general election, for example, comes up, and then you change all those people in power. And sometimes that goes the way you want it to, and sometimes it goes the way you don't want it to. It's a beautiful thing called democracy. And even if we don't like it, sometimes it works against us.
Well, people forget as well, in 1933, the Nazi Party was actually democratically elected as the head of Germany.
Yeah, because they, as she says, we were all bewitched.
Yeah, but that bewitchment, where does that bewitchment come from? Comes from the Department of Propaganda.
It comes from a desire of the people is where it comes from. I just don't, they always make it out. It was like 3.5 people, and they were the only guilty ones. So where it was not that at all.
Well, Jordan Peterson, who's a very controversial psychologist, and those who are listening, you have your opinions on him, but he wrote a book talking about that very idea, how it was actually it was the very higher ups in the Nazi Party, and they. Essentially what they did is they brainwashed everyone, and he talks all about how they did these little things to make it so eventually you kind of sort of saw the way they were.
You don't see any parallels between Britain in 2019?
I do.
I'm not saying I don't see parallels.
You really don't?
No, I'm not saying I don't see parallels.
And it doesn't worry you?
But I think that it's weird.
Please don't tell me there's nothing you can do about it. There's huge parallels. That's why the play's so timely.
What you can do is you can put an X next to an individual who you genuinely believe could change something for you, but I don't believe you can do very much else other than that.
Did you not hear James's words about propaganda, the way people are brainwashed?
Absolutely. And all you can do is when you have the conversation with people, this is what I don't understand, is that politics is quite a closed-off subject unless you work in a news environment. When you're out in everyday life, people might mention politics if they know factually that they agree with each other's points of view. But as soon as they have a difference of opinion, that's it, they shy away because they're worried about what it could ultimately mean for a friendship or a relationship between two individuals. Is they don't want to talk about politics if they know they differ. But actually, it's those conversations that help to change the way society thinks. And potentially it could be for better, it could be for worse as well.
Do you know, I think that's a very English thing, the shying away from political adversary. It seems like in this country, we're very quiet, aren't we? Whereas I've got a friend of mine who's Turkish, and obviously in Turkey it's the same sort of thing where it's like, someone gets into power and they start saying all these things and they start painting this picture. And he says when he goes back to Turkey, it's like violence in the streets almost. People are so much arguing about the ideas.
I was wondering when I was watching the play, this week it was announced, and the media did a whole hoo-ha about it, as you'd expect, that the Sultan of Brunei had brought in a complete...
I wondered if this was going to come up.
Well, of course it's going to come up. Why wouldn't it? It's Sharia law in Brunei. And we've always seen Brunei as friends to the UK, whatever that might mean. And as part of the Sharia law, if you are homosexual, you'll be stoned to death, as well as adultery, plus all the other things that they bring in. And there was a big thing about, well, let's boycott these places.
Yeah, the hotels that they own.
That they own around the world. And everyone said, yeah. And I did a long post about it, and a lot of people agreed. And then I got a phone call from a very dear friend of mine, and a great friend of Men's Radio Station, as it so happens, who said, you're completely wrong. All that's happening with you suggesting that, for example, the Dorchester or wherever it might be, and in Los Angeles as well, is boycotted, is that the people who work there are going to be unemployed and out of work and on the street. And do you actually think that the Sultan of Brunei could give a monkeys because he could lose 20% of his income? Wouldn't even give him a sleepless night. Who cares? He could never spend his money ever. So it's a completely pointless exercise. And I said, well, what else can one do? You've got to show some support for humanity. And he said, well, go stand outside the embassy and complain. Don't try and boycott the thing. But I do know that one charity that I was associated with for many, many years as its CEO and trustee has pulled 2 events from the hotel in London as a result of that.
I think boycotting does something. I think if he loses 20% of his income, it's still going to hurt him. He's still going to worry about it.
It's all oil income. It's not really from hotels. It means nothing to them.
It still sends a message.
Hotels are a hobby to him.
It's a pocket money.
It still sends a message. I mean, that play is talking about sending a message. And do you stand up for something? You're still standing up and saying, no, I'm not going to support.
Well, it's a hell of a lot easier, of course, when you're not in Nazi Germany to just say, I'm not going to your hotel. And a lot of people quite rightly said, well, this is irrelevant, Ross, because I couldn't afford to go to the hotel. I get that point. I get that point entirely. But a lot of organisations have their big galas and stuff like that. And that is income.
That's what I mean. So when a charity pulls away, it sends a message, doesn't it? It says we oppose your ideas.
But of course, I'm logical enough, James, to know. Do you think in Brunei they're going, ooh, XYZ charity's not having their gala. Oh, damn, we better stop Sharia law. They couldn't care less. But I don't know what else to do.
They are having a conversation about it.
No, they're not.
Of course they are.
I don't think they do.
Of course they are. It might not be like, scramble the cabinet, whatever. It's a disaster. But there's definitely people sitting around a desk going like, how do we solve this issue? Because it's still a problem.
I just find it abhorrent.
Of course you do.
In 2019, that for being gay, you're going to be stoned to death. I mean, what the hell?
Anyone with sound reasoning would think exactly the same, that it is abhorrent. But the awful truth is...
It's barbaric.
Of course it is. But again, it comes back to what I was saying a little bit before. It's not a defeatist attitude. It's actually a realistic attitude. It's saying that there are some people who are in power who, unfortunately, sometimes you'll agree with them and sometimes you won't agree with them. And very scarcely is there actually anything that can really be done about it. Sure, make your voice heard. Sure, you can say, I'm going to boycott these various institutions just because I'm demonstrating how much I find abhorrent a society that has a particular way of living and a way of life and a way of believing, which for the record in itself is another debate. How right are we or wrong are we to question someone's belief? If that is their belief, that's their belief. Who are we? They shouldn't question ours any more than we should question theirs. But that's another subject. As far as...
But no, Phil, sorry. There are certain lines in the sand in humanity that just are ridiculous to be crossed.
Of course they are. To you and me and to anyone who's sane.
When you say it can't be questioned, it's like, no, it can be questioned.
Okay, all right. Well, what if the boot was on the other foot? What if it was a case that the Sultan of Brunei and his ministers were questioning the way that we behave? I'm not saying that they are right in their attitude. Please don't misconstrue. Okay? But let's just say the Sultan of Brunei and his ministers questioned our country's attitude towards homosexuality. What would we do? We would tell them to beggar off, none of your business, keep your nose out of it.
We would say as human beings, we don't think it's right to kill someone for the way that they feel.
And of course it's not right. There is absolutely zero justification for that.
Chop somebody's arm off for stealing an apple or whatever it is.
I agree. There is zero justification, but it is their country. It's their belief. It might be wrong, but it's what they believe. So I'm not saying that I condone it by any stretch of the imagination.
So we could have gone back. So just to round off this particular argument, Phil Dave, we could have, standing in Britain in 1930s, 6 million Jews, homosexuals, communists, and anyone they didn't like sent up the chimneys. We could have said, well, you know what? I don't really agree with it, but hey, it's none of our business.
That's how we started off.
Is that the view? That's how your logic extends.
That's how we started off, for the record.
That's what I would say is sound reasoning. It's not right.
You stand by and just let it happen.
And it's funny.
I don't understand.
But how can you change it? What? Okay, all right. Let's put it another way. Okay, let's put it another way. No. But then what's that going to solve? Violence doesn't solve anything. How exactly?
Violence solves a lot of things.
All right. So you're suggesting that if you were to start a military sort of defence against them, or whatever the expression is, against Brunei.
No, I'm not suggesting that. It's ridiculous. Every time they try, it's a disaster.
Exactly. So what's the answer then? You can't go and bomb them and say that that's the answer
No,
to
I'm
it.
not. No, I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm not suggesting
then
violence against them. Every time we stick our nose into Middle Eastern affairs, it is an absolute unmitigated,
and there we have
terrible
it.
disaster.
Fine. So what's the answer then? Therein lies the problem. I'm not suggesting that you're wrong in what you say, that it is abhorrent and that something should be done about it. But let's be honest, the tactics of this great country of ours that have happened in recent years gone by, haven't exactly worked. And I would argue the tactics have not worked since the Second World War. If you look at the way that eventually the British did liberate the camps, working alongside their allies, liberated the camps all over Europe to ensure that the Nazis' regime was well and truly at an end, have we really ever seen success like that since? And the answer is probably not.
Falkland Islands?
Well, not on the same scale then.
Well, of course it's not on the same scale, but again, you're going to be pushed around all the time.
Also, what about when Operation Desert Storm, was it? I don't know. George H.W. Bush's invasion.
I would never have started any of that.
But
Anyway,
that was a
it's very
success.
interesting. The reason I'm talking about this is because Men's Radio Station, our strapline, which we spent long and hard thinking about, is where men really talk. So you got three guys talking today. Always love your views. What's the telephone number, Mr. James Blake, producer?
0203-290-4411.
I love it. I love it. We've gone from a really serious subject to 0203-290-4411.
Well, it's a bit like a certain radio station. I won't mention its name. We call it BBC Radio London. And where you can be discussing something in the middle of the night really, really heavy. And it's like, well, Phil, I hope you recover. You've been really bad. Anyway, here's Diana Ross. It's fantastic. So,
Don't be mean about my current employers.
well, I'm not being mean. I'm being honest. That's how it is. It's a fantastic juxtaposition, because otherwise you've got to find exactly the right... You don't know how the conversation's going to go on the phone. Those guys don't know. So you can't have every tune in the world lined up. So there's always going to be sometimes a juxtaposition. You go, what the heck?
This is true.
That's natural.
Anyway, here's some Diana Ross. No, I'm joking.
Right, we're gonna have a breather. Phil's probably going to punch me in the mouth, and we're going to pay the rent.
You're listening to Russ Kane on Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hello, I'm Lawrence Davis. I'm the proud owner of Stout Cigars in Mayfair and Knightsbridge. For the past 60 years, we've been providing the world's best Cuban cigars. When it comes to cigars, there's no other than Stout Cigars from Mayfair and Knightsbridge. We at Stouters would like to wish Men's Radio Station every support in their task for helping men's emotional and mental well-being. Check them out. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's Radio Station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
Let me tell you about Jermyn Street Theatre. We are the smallest theatre in the West End, only 70 seats. We are a registered charity and not grant-aided, run by a small team of volunteers and trustees. Jermyn Street Theatre is a hidden gem. It combines the comfort and convenience of the West End with the intimacy of a studio. Every seat has a perfect view of the stage, and even a whisper is audible. This is a secret theatre in the heart of the West End, once found, never forgotten.
Hi, I'm Noel McDermott, licensed psychotherapist. I'll be launching my new show, Wellbeing Wednesdays, on Men's Radio Station on the 17th of April, 9pm till 11pm. I'll be talking to my guests about all things mental health and well-being. I'll be offering practical help and advice on issues around relationships, anxiety, depression, drug and alcohol. I'll be focusing on your mental wealth and how you can increase it. So, come check me out on April the 17th at 9pm with Wellbeing Wednesdays. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
Not ready for making tax digital? Struggling to keep up with changes? Or do you simply need a friendly and reliable face to handle your accounting needs? With over 20 years of experience, BBK Partnership in 5 London areas provide personal advice, and all our partners are readily available in person and by phone at times that suit you. Give BBK a call today, 0208 216 2520, or visit our website, bbkca.com.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
They certainly do. This is Men's Radio Station, where men really talk. I don't know. I just decided to do it's been so heavy, and it's got me so depressed. I decided to do a cartoon voice, and
I think it worked.
Thank you very much. That's Phil Dave. I'm Russ Kane, and rocking the decks with great dexterity today.
It's easier for you to say.
I was waiting for that. I just bet in my head. I bet my house on that. Rocking the decks. James Blake, boy wonder producer. Coming up in a moment, he said, brilliantly looking at his notes, is somebody called Sam Thomas. Sam is a campaigner, and he's recovering from bulimia. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be talking to him in a minute. He's going to be on the line. He was going to be here, but now he's going to be on the line, which, there you go.
It's the wonders of modern technology. It means that we've rectified it.
Be what? Say that again?
We have rectified the situation.
It's just, I can't take you seriously when you say the words rectified.
Can you ever take him seriously?
I take Phil very seriously. So I've known him for years, and we've had a lot of adventures. And
this is true, actually.
We've had a lot of adventures.
They've normally involved whiskey and cigars.
They have. And also, Phil, let's not kid ourselves, we've fallen out with a lot of people.
Yeah, that's very true as well, actually.
And then I said, Phil, make up with her. It's usually her. Make up with her.
To which I say impossible.
You go, why? And I go, 'cause.
It's true.
Didn't really work out, did it? Anyway, so there we are. Conservative estimates, more than 1 in 10 sufferers of eating disorders are male. Yep. Some say that the proportion is closer to a quarter. Either way. Is it either or either? I prefer either.
I think either is the English.
I was going to say either is preferable. I can't say it now. It's
easy
for me to say. Either is preferable.
Did you ever work for the BBC?
I've no idea.
Absolute miracle.
No idea.
The figure is rising. Only recently people started to realise that bulimia, anorexia and other eating disorders do not discriminate on gender grounds. I never thought they actually did, but it's something that we're there. Right.
But is it part and parcel of how, and this is exactly what Men's Radio Station stands for, could it be that it's women who talk more about it?
Yeah. Sure, I think that's really at the core of why we started the station. Sam, hello and good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm not too bad, thank you. Sorry I can't be there face to face.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're not here because we always love meeting our guests. But never mind. You're nice and clear from BFPO 20. I'm sorry. When I was a kid, Sunday Radio, and they had two-way family favourites 1,000 years ago, and it was a miracle someone could hear you in Aden or somewhere like that. It was just I don't even know where Aden is, for God's sake.
What are you talking about?
What? The Light programme. BBC.
Oh, that was what they used to call Radio 2, wasn't it?
No, Radio 1 was the Light programme.
It was a Radio 1.
Yeah, Radio 4 was the home service. Right,
That's
Sam.
why I said Radio 2, but anyway.
There wasn't such a thing as radio. I'm so sorry,
Anyway.
Sorry, Sam. Just a second. That was me. I'm Phil.
Ow.
Ow, did that hurt, Phil? Right, Sam, talk us through your story because it's very interesting and it's very poignant and it's of its time. Go on, off you go.
Right, where do I start? My story begins when I was 13. I think you mentioned I developed bulimia, and that was actually to do with bullying that I endured at school. And I was bullied for a number of different reasons, partly because I was very clever.
Because you were because you were very clever, or you were, I didn't hear what you said.
Well, I was quite a studious, high-achieving pupil to start with, and it was pretty obvious as well that, I wasn't the typical male. I didn't necessarily, have a strong sense of my own identity at that point, or know what my sexual orientation was, but everyone else seemed to assume that I was gay. This is 20 years ago now, so of course, in those times, it was very different back then. Understanding around sexual orientation and, being gay was very discriminated against.
But you didn't, absolutely, but you didn't think you were gay. I mean, you hadn't worked out who you were or what you were. I
just hadn't joined up the dots at that point. I was 13, so I think if I had, I had some awareness, obviously, but, I just hadn't realised all that just yet. And, like I say, it was the bullying that caused the bulimia. And it was kind of my way of sort of dealing with things. It was a coping mechanism, albeit a very unhealthy and very damaging one. But it was something that I thought I only did. I didn't realise that I didn't know anything about eating disorders, let alone anorexia. So it didn't really cross my mind that there was such an illness called bulimia.
And talk us through, if you don't mind, I'm sorry if you're having your lunch at home, everybody, but bulimia is what exactly?
It's a good question, because a lot of people are kind of familiar with anorexia to a certain extent, but bulimia seems to be a bit of a mystery, and in part because it's a very secret and very hidden illness. So my case was quite typical in that sense. I'd isolate myself, usually in the boys' toilets at school, or at home, and used to just binge literally on the contents of my lunchbox or wherever I could get hold of. And then eventually, because of the anxiety and the build-up of tension, would relieve that by, making myself sick, basically.
Was that after every time you ate?
An enormous sense of relief.
Was that, Sam, was that after every time you ate, you made yourself sick?
It was on a very frequent basis, yes. It did vary considerably depending what was going on at that time, whether I was bullied, that particular day, how isolated I might have been. There were several different factors. And of course, I was a teenager growing up, your hormones are kicking in. So trying to work out all that sort of side of things, like I say, like identity and my grades were suffering quite enormously because of the bullying as well. So that was another added pressure on all the everyday pressures that teenagers go through. And like I say, I was not popular. I didn't have friends. So it was just my way of coping. And I remember when I was 15, I was actually reading one of my mum's magazines. And I often joke now, clearly I must have been bored. But, I was actually reading the Agony Aunt column. And there was a letter from a single mother who basically, she just split up from her partner. She put her kids to bed at night fairly early and then used to binge and purge herself. Now, of course, I did not relate with her situation, but I certainly related with the behaviours, and that's how I came to learn that, or relate with bulimia in that way.
And so up until that point, would you say that you just thought that this is me, this is the way I am, there's nothing abnormal?
Completely. Absolutely. It didn't even cross my mind. That's how oblivious I was to it. Because, I guess thinking back now, if you have a stomach bug, for instance, and, you're sick a few times, it usually helps you to relieve the symptoms because it gets rid of the bug. So I guess it was that sort of same mentality. And I think when I came to learn that of this new illness, bulimia, that obviously was very much something that I could relate with.
Can you think of anything that would have triggered it? Can you think of anything maybe that someone might have said? No one ever made any reference to any weight or anything like that. There wasn't any trigger as such.
Because no one knew anything about it. Like I said at the beginning, it's very secretive and very hidden. So people wouldn't necessarily know anything. And the interesting thing about bulimia, and I think this is the thing that people tend to get a bit confused about, is that you don't necessarily lose weight and you don't necessarily gain weight. So there's no physical obvious signs, not like anorexia, for instance, where over a period of time, obviously someone's going to lose an enormous amount of weight. So therefore, the physical signs do get picked up on a lot sooner. Bulimia, not the case. So I think that's the bit that I think people get, stumble on in their thinking and, and understanding around bulimia.
Sam, hi. Now, just to wind this back a little bit, did you have both did you have both parents at home at the time, or single parent?
My mother, yes, she was often at work. I mean, she worked ridiculous amount of hours, so, she was around, but not around in that
Any
sense.
brothers or sisters?
Yes, I had a half-brother and half-sister.
Right, okay. The reason I'm asking is because it's twofold. Number one, interesting. I don't know how many times you've heard the shows that we put out here on Men's Radio Station, but bullying at school is the most. It underlines so many of the guests that we come in, and whatever it might have been, the problems start at school. It's uncanny. Absolutely uncanny, the impact that it has. So, just dealing with the bullying for a moment.
And especially at age as well, when you're a teenager. Obviously, bullying in all its forms at whatever age has an enormous impact.
Yes, it does.
But I think when you're sort of trying to figure out all these things for yourself, and very disengaged from the people around you, with its friends, with its family. It does sort of, reinforce that sense of isolation. And of course, it just manifests itself in different ways. People with bulimia might end up having drug and alcohol problems, for instance, or self-harm. There's often a lot of crossover between these different issues.
It's a form of self-harming, isn't it? I mean, making yourself vomit is pretty ghastly. But what I was going to ask was this, that when you got home from school, was your mum, was she working so hard you couldn't turn around and say, Mum, I'm having a terrible time at school, I'm being bullied? Was there no one you could turn to, Sam?
Oh, she was aware of the bullying, yes, and she did write some very angry letters on quite a regular basis to try and deal with that. And to no avail, unfortunately.
Nothing. Did the teachers not pick up on it?
But the bulimia, no. And again, this is why it is surprising, but not surprising all at the same time, because I was regularly truanting from school. And I think to some extent, because I was hiding in the boys' toilets, they wouldn't really necessarily think to find me there. And of course, I wasn't going to tell them where I were. So I think it was only for brief stints, I'd sneak out, go back to the lesson. So sometimes it would go quite unnoticed. It was a very chaotic school as well, to be honest. So I was probably not really.
It sounds. I mean, you wouldn't need to be Columbo to work out. Well, where could Sam Thomas be? Well, let's look in the boys' loo, shall we? I mean, it's not. You don't have to be a genius.
I know. It's in some ways it's funny for another reason, because you would think, yes, we can't find him anywhere, possibly boys' toilets, but like I say, there were a lot of problematic students in my year group. It's funny enough, just talking to a friend last week, actually. It's one of the only school friends that, I'd maintained contact with, and echoed exactly the same thing. So I guess because it was not on the radar of the teachers, that therefore, I was very successful, I guess, at trying to sort of carry out these behaviours unnoticed. So, yeah. Like I say, it might seem surprising from an outsider's point of view, but then again, not that surprising when I come to think about it.
I understand that. I'm only trying to understand it myself, and act as a sort of bridge to the listeners as well, who I'm sort of sitting at home going, well, why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do that? And it's when you tell the story, you can see why. Did your siblings never realise that you were,
I don't think. I think when they became older, yes, but they were younger. I mean, my sister's 4 years my junior. My brother, he was, 8 years my junior, so they certainly wouldn't have been aware of anything per se. And I was going to say about my mother as well, because I think the other thing that I probably realised later on in life, I think because, food would often go missing at home, she would probably just be thinking hungry teenager.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So even the obvious signs would easily gone unnoticed, because it wouldn't have been unusual for a teenager to eat a lot more than usual, especially rubbish food. So therefore, I don't really, I kind of get why, even my mother didn't pick up on the signs necessarily. And she was at work most of the time. She just literally worked and worked.
Let's talk a little bit about that turning point, though, because you mentioned just now about an agony aunt column you were reading, and you read about how a woman had suffered, if that's the right, I don't even know whether or not suffer is an insult. Is that the right term? Do you mind people saying suffer with bulimia?
Yes, well, I definitely suffered. There's no question of that. In all sorts of different ways. You could say I've got lived experience or in recovery from, it's just different ways of putting it, meaning the same. But
okay, well, for all intents and purposes, if we were to say that you read about an individual who you could relate to, someone who was carrying out similar behavioural patterns to you, was it the turning point that you thought to yourself, okay, there's something not right here?
This is the point I was just about to say, actually, and that's good. Basically, I think the way that I look back on it now, in some ways it had the opposite effect of what the realisation of the illness could have had in terms of speaking to someone, getting help, etc., etc. Instead, if anything, it sort of gave permission for and validated not just the underlying issues, but also the illness itself. So
yeah, because you could see someone was doing what you were doing, and therefore it was okay, almost.
Yeah, it's exactly what I'm saying. It just became that weapon to use in which to self-harm.
Wow.
So I think it just reinforced all those negative feelings that I was experiencing at a very vulnerable time of my life, and especially at that age.
And you then started a movement or a charity, correct?
Yes, I've done quite a bit in the respect, mental health, broadly speaking, but particularly with eating disorders, because it's quite interesting. I tend to forget that, I was quite one of the fortunate people that even though I did attempt to seek help at 16, just after I left school, but at 18, back to saying what you're saying, what you mentioned at the beginning is that, we, especially at that time, which was over about 15 years ago now, there was no awareness really of men with eating disorders. In fact, the general awareness of eating disorders was, not all that at the time. And, I remember it was probably in the height of the size zero sort of period, which was regularly debated in the press and the media. And all that really did was reinforce, the stereotypes and the assumptions around eating disorders. Particularly that, obviously it's a female-only issue that younger women will experience, relating with sort of models, catwalk models more specifically, obviously trying to lose a lot of weight. And actually for me, that didn't represent me at all and what I was experiencing. And not only that, it kind of missed the point that for me, it was never about body image or trying to lose weight or, or anything along those lines. Actually, it was triggered by the bullying. Very specifically.
And that's actually probably the biggest lesson that I've learned from you today, is because it's rightly or wrongly, that's one thing I've always associated with someone who has bulimia, is that, they're just trying a quick fix to repair their body image.
Not the case at all. I think a lot of it is more to do with self-esteem issues. And all sorts of I've always said that eating disorder is a combination and culmination of different issues built up over time. It's not really black and white. It's not clear cut. So the causes and the contributing factors for that, are quite hardwired, deep-rooted, and often does link to trauma. And just how it manifests itself can be different. So, for some, like I said earlier, certain people might develop bulimia or anorexia or tend to drink and drugs or self-injure or whatever, you know what I mean? And often do quite a few of those things at different points in their lives. And that's something else that I've realised as the years have gone on.
In the absence of a better word, are you cured now? As in, do you ever get relapses now, or is it something that's totally in your past?
It's a very interesting question, because I had a bit of a realisation, I think, over the past years. I will be honest on the phone now. I've been in hospital, mental health hospital twice over the past year. I had to take a major step back from my work, all sorts of different things. But, one of the things that I did realise, I think, when I was in hospital fairly recently, is that it's never really a question, is it cured or are you ever, totally recovered? I think it's actually about managing the issues rather than resolving or solving the traumas. And that's just the harsh, brutal sort of, reality of it, I think. And I think, I spent far too long trying to fix the bulimia or trying to fix, I turned to exercise for a long time and then started drinking quite a bit, all sorts of different things. And I think it's just, again, to stress the point, it's just the manifestations of the trauma that perhaps is never going to be truly resolved. But if you accept it and learn to manage it, ideally with healthy, non-damaging coping mechanisms, with a support network around you, hopefully, yes, it can be truly manageable.
It's a shocking thing. It's a shocking thing, Sam, isn't it? That the people who were bullying you probably don't even remember you. Probably have just got on with their lives and don't even think about school, whatever they're doing. And you are left, left in its wake and haven't shaken it off. I mean, it's sad, isn't it? It's horrible.
That's true. But then again, I think of a handful of individuals that I went to school with that might have come across my work and, in various different ways and have actually said, I'm sorry. So I think some have realised that impact and obviously grown up and perhaps realised the issues they've experienced themselves. Quite a number of people that were bullied for whatever reason or just seem to be a particular target. So
if they've apologised to, I'm just trying to explore this because it's a very fascinating and a very wide-reaching subject. If the perpetrators of the bullying have apologised to you and said, Sam, I was a complete arse. I'm really sorry, but I was a kid of 13. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Let's go and have a drink, or can I buy you supper, or, whatever it is. It would be great, wouldn't it, if you could say, do you know what? That was then. This is now. I've drawn a line under it. It's finished. They've apologised, and now I'm Sam Thomas, and I'm okay because I'm 28 and I'm all right.
I mean, that could be one way of looking at it, and the other way of looking at it is the fact that obviously, I like to think of it in the sense that I've turned a negative into a positive. So in some ways, yes, it doesn't reason or justify the bullying at all whatsoever, and the impact that had, but actually, it's enabled me to engage with others who are suffering the same in their own unique circumstances, where bullying could well be involved. So therefore, the impact this had has been turned around, hopefully, in that sense. And that's kind of how I like to think of it now, rather than just dwelling on, being the sufferer rather than being the survivor. Or, you know what I mean?
To the perpetrator who apologised to you, do you forgive that individual? Have you forgiven that individual?
Yeah, I think I probably have. I think I've just moved on with my life. I vaguely sort of remember some of these, events where, I was bullied now because it was so long ago and things have moved on. And, someone introduced this new concept that I don't think's really been quite out there. It's not been put out there just yet, but it's the idea of post-traumatic growth rather than being post-traumatically stressed. The idea that, actually does help us evolve as individuals. From all those traumatic experiences, and that's something that I've been exploring, for myself over the past year, whilst I'm going through this sort of, period of my life where I've been, in hospital and, got a new diagnosis and just understanding that trauma elements a lot more and what that actually means rather than trying to just ignore it.
Without prying, Sam, and forgive me, we always have a rule on Men's Radio Station. If you're not happy with the question, it's not Radio 4, I'm not John Humphreys, you can say, I'd rather not go there. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah,
but you're back in. You've been back in hospital. You've mentioned it several times in our conversation with myself and Phil. Is that bulimia related, or is that another issue?
No, it's not bulimia. Okay. I can understand why people jump to that sort of assumption and conclusion. Fortunately, I've managed to keep maintain a recovery from bulimia. And I always say it's roughly around 2021 that, I'd been free from the behaviours, if you like, of bulimia.
Right.
But of course, as I said earlier, it can manifest itself in different ways. And throughout my 20s, I was quite famous for going to the gym every single day without fail. Some people might say, was that not bulimia in a different way? Possibly. It wasn't necessarily to do with body image. I think I was just a very highly anxious sort of person, so the gym just worked for me. I was running like 7 odd miles every day. Or
I don't see any problems with that at all. My son is in.
This is why it's so.
My son's in the gym every day, and because that's what he wants to do.
Yeah, and exactly, and I think that's the point I was just building up to, the fact that some people might see it as being quite strict and quite disciplined and see that as a positive, whereas some people might look at it and say, well, that's just obsession. So it's quite, obviously you have to unpick that and realise what that's really about, but it's quite interesting. There are different arguments around that, and I do think, I do take it far to the extreme with the exercise. I recognise that now. I wouldn't have permitted it at the time, no way, because otherwise I just wouldn't have been able to cope. I wouldn't be able to function without going to the gym. I used to dread, for instance, Christmas and New Year periods where the gym would be closed for 2 days. It's only 2 days, but you know what I mean? It was
really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's...
So, but that was just, I think in effect, all I really might have done is swap one thing for another. And that's fairly typical with, people who suffer, from eating disorders might switch to something else, whether it's self-injury, drug and alcohol, gambling, sex even, something, or a whole set of different sort of ways to cope or distract yourself from the underlying issues. And I think that's just something that I think really sort of became clearer to me over the past year or so whilst been undergoing treatment.
Right. So do you go to the gym now?
Not at the moment, no, but I'm going to go back soon. But I have to limit myself to only 3-4 days a week. So I'm having that conversation.
That's okay, but I mean, isn't it better to be fit? I'm kind of not seeing it as...
I was going to say,
not seeing it as a negative. I'm quite jealous, really.
To me, I would sort of suggest that there are far worse things to be addicted to, and thank goodness that, as you've proven, thank goodness that there are. You're not actually addicted to those worse items, as it were.
Do you know what it is? I think it's about not being aware of the potential for it to become an obsession or an addiction. I think in the past, I wasn't really aware. I think I was sort of quite ignorant to it, quite oblivious. So I think, as far as I'm concerned, it wasn't a problem. I was just being disciplined and strict, like I say. Yeah. But I think because I'm aware of it now, being 33, I guess, when you get to your early 30s, you kind of notice that pattern a lot more. If I think now how I've switched from one thing to another, from bulimia to exercise, drinking at one point, I've switched all different sort of ways to cope. So I think it's just really about working with it than against it now. So just to be able to manage that addictive, sort of compulsive, obsessive behaviours, really.
And what was really interesting is something that you mentioned just before, which is a terminology that I can relate to but had never actually heard of, is when you were saying about post-traumatic growth. That sounds like sort of a real interesting concept, because more often than not, we hear about post-traumatic stress, and obviously that is the negative effects of what a trauma can do to somebody.
Yeah.
But the point that there is a way of taking a trauma and turning it into a positive. I'm not trying to make this conversation about me, because actually I don't like talking about me, if I'm honest with you, but the fact that I can completely relate to what you were saying about bullying at school is something that I have been relatively open with on Men's Radio Station in the past. In fact, it was just the most abhorrent years of my life. But the fact is that if it weren't for going through that, I don't think I'd be half the person I am now. And I just really, I'm loving the fact that there is actually an expression that people can cling on to, actually turn negative bullying into something positive.
Absolutely. You know, it's one of the things that I despise is the idea of being some sort of victim of something.
Oh,
you know,
dreadful
I think, you know,
dreadful word.
Obviously, at one point in my life, yes, I was a victim of the bullying, but actually, you know, we don't really think about, you know, how it enables us to grow, evolve as human beings, and actually just become more aware of our own issues, but also supportive of other people. And I think turning it, you know, thinking of it as post-traumatic growth, sort of hopefully sort of enables people to sort of think about the positive impact that, you know, some of these very damaging, traumatizing experiences that we all have at different points of our lives.
Well, there's this age-old adage, isn't there?
It's a lot more realistic, I think,
everything happens for a reason, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And
does it is. I do believe in it.
Does everything happen?
You see, my dad would always say that, and I'd go, really?
Absolutely.
I mean, really? Do we have no self-determination? Do we have no desire of what we're able to do? You think
Indeed.
it's mapped
No,
out?
absolutely
You think it's all
we do.
mapped out?
No, absolutely we do. Everything happens for a reason. Sorry to completely digress from you, Sam. I do apologise. Everything happens for a reason is a positive way of thinking about something horrible that's happened in your life that maybe you do have no control over, gives you the choice of what you're going to do with that horrible occurrence and how you are going to make that work for you as an individual. It doesn't mean that you can't control what happens next. You might not have been able to control what happened in that moment. I don't believe everything is mapped out. I think that everyone has the ability to choose.
Do you know what? Yeah, I totally agree with everything you just said there. I do believe that, you know, there are certain things that we can't exactly control, but how we can sort of manage the impact that it has.
I get all that, but I've got to take issue with this nonsense about everything happens for a reason. Why would I want to watch my mum, who passed away a year ago, go through 16 years of dementia and Alzheimer and suffering? Do you explain to me, Phil Dave, why and that happens for a reason? What is the reason? The reason is crap. The reason is a nightmare. There's no reason for everything happens for a reason. She got ill.
She did get ill, but you are far more aware of the disease, and I would hedge my bets that even if just one person in your lifetime comes up to you and starts discussing perhaps potential symptoms that they are seeing with their own mother, and you can turn around to them and say, I believe that sounds like the start of what my mother had.
I get that all the time.
Well, that's exactly the reason why it happened, is because you're helping others by doing that. It's about the way you look at it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to butt in there. But
no, not at all. Please, this is your moment.
You're the guest. You chat away, Sam.
Sorry, I was just sort of adding what you were saying there. But sometimes I think when you go through recent traumas, I think it takes a while to understand what the reasons for that might be. Because, you know, when you said about your mother, you know, my mother died when I was 25. You know, we didn't speak for 7 years before she died. I didn't even know she was unwell even.
You didn't speak?
It was only, I know it sounds a bit weird, but the first few years, I didn't grieve her death at all, because I couldn't really process in my brain how could I grieve for someone that I didn't have any contact with. But then, you know, as soon as I hit 30, all of a sudden, all that grief sort of flooded, you know, my brain and risen to the surface. So I think sometimes it takes a while, I think, to sort of get some sort of sense of an understanding when it's very recent still. And there are probably a number of different examples of, you know, I've experienced, you know, it's relationship breakdowns and things like that, you know, sometimes takes that a little bit longer to sort of, you know, enable that understanding.
Well, we could talk about this for a lot, but I'm against the clock. I'm getting crazy signals from my producer here. Sam Thomas, if people want to get hold of you, how do they do that?
I think Twitter is probably the best way at the moment, actually.
Which is at Sam_Thomas86. I'll give you that again. It's at Sam_Thomas with the number 86. Sam Thomas, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. And we'd love to have you back, as a matter of fact. So if you're up for it, and we'd definitely like to have you back. You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
You're listening to Russ Kane on Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hello, I'm Lawrence Davis. I'm the proud owner of Starter Cigars in Mayfair and Knightsbridge. For the past 60 years, we've been providing the world's best Cuban cigars. When it comes to cigars, there's no other than Starter Cigars from Mayfair and Knightsbridge. We at Starters would like to wish Men's Radio Station every support in their task for helping men's emotional and mental well-being. Check them out. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's Radio Station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
Let me tell you about Jermyn Street Theatre. We are the smallest theatre in the West End, only 70 seats. We are a registered charity and not grant-aided, run by a small team of volunteers and trustees. Jermyn Street Theatre is a hidden gem. It combines the comfort and convenience of the West End with the intimacy of a studio. Every seat has a perfect view of the stage, and even a whisper is audible. This is a secret theatre in the heart of the West End, once found, never forgotten.
Hi, I'm Noel McDermott, licensed psychotherapist. I'll be launching my new show, Wellbeing Wednesdays, on Men's Radio Station on the 17th of April, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. I'll be talking to my guests about all things mental health and well-being. I'll be offering practical help and advice on issues around relationships, anxiety, depression, drug and alcohol. I'll be focusing on your mental wealth and how you can increase it. So, come check me out on April the 17th at 9 p.m. with Wellbeing Wednesdays. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
Not ready for making tax digital? Struggling to keep up with changes? Or do you simply need a friendly and reliable face to handle your accounting needs? With over 20 years of experience, BBK Partnership in 5 London areas provide personal advice, and all our partners are readily available in person and by phone at times that suit you. Give BBK a call today, 0208 216 2520, or visit our website, bbkca.com.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Squirtingly, I'm Russ Kane, in with Mr. Phil Dave, sporting his brand new haircut.
Thank you.
And the jury's out. I like it, but, what the hell do I know? And I don't watch reality shows. And rocking the decks, as always, and bringing in his mum. I couldn't make this up if I tried. Mr. James Blake with his mum, who I have to refer to as Ms. Blake.
We needed an extra set of hands, okay?
No, we did, and her hands seem to be constantly on my shoulder and Phil's shoulder. I'm just pointing that out.
We like your mum.
We love your mum. We love your mum. I just love the fact that because she knows there's Facebook Live. I think she wanted stylists brought in and hairdressers and everything else. There she is.
Anyone watching on Facebook Live,
this is James's mum. There she is. Ms. Yeah, all right. Okay, you haven't got a speaking role, by the way. Thanks.
Wow.
Yeah, no, thanks for that one. I appreciate that.
Dear, oh dear.
She cracks me up.
You do know our guest is looking completely horrified.
He's not horrified. He's a motivational speaker. He's a genius. It's water off the back of a duck to this guy.
Can we please encourage people to interact with us? Would that be okay?
Yeah, I'd like you to do that, Phil. Then I'm going to talk to Mr. Pete Cohen.
Thank you. Okay, well, if you have heard any of the subjects that we've been talking about on today's Men's Radio Station, I really do mean any of them. We started off talking about rather deep subjects, really. We were talking about whether or not that we would interfere, or we would interject, perhaps is a better word, when it came to matters of pure evil, in our opinion. You're very welcome to make comment on any of that you heard. If you also maybe heard our guest that we heard just now over the phone, he's talking about suffering from bulimia, and he was talking about how it impacted on his life and how he's now doing truly inspirational work to try and combat eating disorders. If eating disorders have affected you or your family, we would very much like you to be daring enough to actually tell us about it. You won't be judged. That's not what Men's Radio Station's about. It's where we talk. We are open, we are honest, and we'd like you to do the same. If you give us a call, the telephone number is 0203 290 4411. We haven't mentioned social media. We're also a presence on there. If you want to interact with us through Facebook, go to facebook.com/Men's Radio STN. That's as in the shortened version of the word station, just in case you didn't realise.
Okay.
And on Twitter, we are at Men's Radio STN.
Yeah, so STN short for station.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay. Right. In the studio with us now is Pete Cohen. Pete, welcome.
Thank you.
You look ridiculously fit, so it's already getting on my nerves.
I'm sorry about that.
No, you look horribly fit.
My mum.
You've got horrible. I would bring mine, but she's dead. But which is going to be really awkward, quite frankly, and just messy. But yeah, I mean, next time bring your family.
I will.
If he can bring his mum, if you want to bring yours.
I'd love to.
Well, bring Mrs. Cohen. You're more than welcome.
Come as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking is the reason I said you look fit. You look like shoulders like an IKEA wardrobe, and you're coming in and you're like. This is a guy, our previous guest was living in the gym, but was worried about it, and I thought, well, it's okay. You obviously are no stranger to the gym.
Well, I actually was many years ago a personal trainer. In 1989, I started teaching aerobics, and I worked in that industry for a few years.
Yeah, it kind of shows.
Yeah, so it's kind of in my DNA, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry about that. Next time I'll come back and put some weight on.
Would you mind? If you could just kind of waddle in, I'd be so much happier.
The awful truth is that Russ and I, by default, and James to some degree as well, we're not greedy people. We don't need 6-packs. We're most content with 1-packs.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like 1-pack. Yeah,
or 2-pack.
What? No, hey,
I got that.
Right, now, Pete Cohen, it says here, my notes prepared by boy wonder James Blake.
Thank you.
You're
James.
one of the world's leading speakers, coaches, leadership experts, and you got a new book, which we want to hear all about, called Inspirators, Leading the Way in Leadership. I've got to say it like that because that's how I hear it in my head.
That's how I wrote it.
Leading the way in leadership.
Yeah.
Well, you wrote it like a voiceover artist.
Yeah, basically.
You've got to do that. That's how I take it. Right. What is an inspirator, first of all?
Well, with a question like that, it's actually quite hard to know exactly where to start because it's such a massive question. Because for me,
am I on fire today?
Yeah, no.
What?
I mean, it's like
The questions get a bit longer than that.
If I tell you where the word came from in my life, then we'd have to probably spend a lot of time talking about.
I'm in no rush.
Okay, so
I don't have a life.
You need a life coach.
I've thought about it. I've thought about it a lot, actually. Move on.
I think everyone needs a bit of help. I think we've all been helped in our lives. That's the only reason why we're here. But the whole thing about inspiration is when you're breathing life into something that is ahead of you. Apart from, the one thing that is definitely ahead of us is death, but everything else before that.
And on that cheery note, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye. Thanks for coming in.
Most people.
And tax, you forgot
And
that.
tax,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, someone said to me yesterday there are two most important dates in your life: the day you were born and the second day you work out why you were born, what you're here to do. And even though that might sound like a big philosophical question, I personally, for most of my life, didn't know where I was going. I knew where I didn't want to go.
I'm going to hold you there for a sec, because it's because that's a fascinating can of worms you've just opened up straight away.
I thought it would be.
Because my view is, I don't think we're here for anything. I think we're just here to have a good time if we can. That's kind of it. That is my philosophy.
But I suppose
if you can't be the guy who... I had a great mentor when I lived in America. And he said, look, Russ, if you can't be Albert Schweitzer, who was the guy at the time, and if you can't be Gandhi, and if you can't be Mother Teresa, and if you're not going to be the guy who discovers DNA or a cure for cancer, you might as well just have a good time.
Yeah.
And that is my entire philosophy. Just enjoy myself, do my best, try not to get into trouble, and not be horrible to other people. That's it.
So
how's that working out for you?
Not so great.
No, my question back to you is that when are you most having a good time?
When I'm working.
Yeah.
When I'm working. That's actually, my happiest is when I'm working.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell that says about me, Pete, but that's the truth.
Well, it's obviously about the fact that you're giving something and inspiring people and probably putting a bit of light and a bit of laughter into people's lives.
Yeah. I'd like to.
Yeah,
You can shut up.
I mean, you've been doing this.
Just because, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but
That's
you see,
fine, absolutely.
because his mother's here, he thinks he can get away with anything and not just be a member of
His
staff.
mum is actually a psychotherapist as well, so you could have her on one ear and me on the other.
Yeah, this is really this is great.
I
What a
like
day I'm
That
having.
might be something after the break. Should we get James's mum in after the
We
break?
are so getting your
And
mum
I'll be
in.
leaving the studio.
What you can't see on
Sharpish.
Facebook Live, because the camera isn't facing you, is James's bright
He's
red.
very red. I can see that, actually.
It's fantastic.
But you know,
bloody hilarious.
He's gone live.
I think human beings tend to be most happy when they are
We'll use you as the
contributing
on-air light.
and making a difference to other people. There was a
I've never thought of it, and then I'll be absolutely frank. When I did this men's radio station is absolutely a labour of love for myself and for the I know for once being serious, and for the team and for the guy who started with me, Howard Jameson, because it's something we totally believe. We didn't just think, hey, let's try and be Radio 1 or BBC. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to do something new, fresh, hadn't been done, and be absolutely honest about it.
Yeah.
And that's why we started Men's Radio Station, because we felt there was a need, and we love doing it.
Well,
and we've met the most fabulous people that we'd never otherwise meet.
So there was a guy that, believe it or not, don't ask me to pronounce his name, but he won the Nobel Prize in 1937, a Hungarian man, for his theory. It was called syntropy. There, you can Google it. Don't ask me to spell the word.
What was his name?
Don't know. I can't pronounce his name. Syntropy, and it's Syntropi.
James's mum's back.
There, she's back.
The producer's mum.
The producer's mum.
no.
And
what was the year he won it in, sorry?
1937, which was the year that the book Think and Grow Rich came out. I don't know. I've only just met her. She's lovely.
She's hilarious.
Yeah, syntropy is a theory that every living cell lives for one reason, and it lives to express itself fully. So whether it's the acorn that falls from the tree, it wants to express itself fully. Human beings seem to want to grow, seem to want to get better. You know, whether it's just growing because there's something that needs to be tidied and cleaned away in your house, that feeling of accomplishment. Human beings like to evolve. It doesn't have to be like Mahatma Gandhi, like you said. It could just be contributing, leaving a legacy in some way, shape or form.
Is it kind of like that? You know that feeling when you've done a day's work and you're like, I've accomplished something. You know what I mean? It's
the feeling of
Where would you feel that exactly?
Achievement.
I hope you one day have that feeling, James.
It's the feeling of
Highly
achievement,
unlikely.
and human beings seem to like it. Oh, look what I did! Look what I've done. Did you find it?
I'm starting to understand why you probably don't want to be able to pronounce it. And what on earth? This looks like an
Can
eye
you please
test. I'm
pronounce
sorry.
it? Hang on.
Is this Albert von?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that'll
right.
do.
I could have said Albert von.
Albert von
Hungarian.
Sense.
Don't even bother.
Yeah, I would encourage everyone to go and find out about it, because it's. I'll tell you something else which would be really interesting for people to find out about is the word genius. So if you ask people,
It's where you take your phone.
Oh, that's it in the Apple Store.
That's what it means.
If you ask, this is a great one. If you Google that, the meaning of the word genius, because if you ask people if they see themselves as a genius, most people would say no, because we think of a genius as someone who's really intelligent.
Don't ask Phil.
Really, Phil? Are you a genius?
I would.
Academic.
I would like to think of myself as many
What
things.
did I say to you?
I would like to think of myself as many things, but even I am not that vain that I would describe
Okay,
myself
but go
as
and
genius.
Google the word genius, and then you'll probably realise that we're all geniuses, because the word came from the Romans, who actually believed that everyone had a genius inside them, this inner voice that would guide us
I
forwards.
don't believe that.
Well, you don't have to, but if you were around at the Romans times and you didn't believe
I was.
it, you
I am feeling
Well,
old today.
according to the definition, a genius is an exceptionally intellectual or creative power or other natural ability.
So if you look at the etymology of the word, because that word, that
That's the
meaning
modern
of the word
definition,
came in the 16th century by the English, who didn't want people to think of themselves as a genius. We wanted people to be lower, middle, upper class. But the actual etymology of the word, check that out.
Okay, so the etymology, according to this, is from the Latin, attendant spirit present from one's birth, innate ability or inclination.
But you know what? It wasn't actually the Romans' idea. It actually came from the Greeks. The Greeks called it a daimon, a voice inside the head.
What have the Romans ever done for us?
Well, there was a few
built
things.
roads.
According to Monty
They built
Python,
roads.
You had to go
lasted.
there. You had to go there.
because it's laughing, and laughing at this. When we're laughing, are we growing? Are we having a...
Just
I don't know.
feeling better. You know what it is? I think in a miserable, horrible, grey and vicious world, it's lovely to laugh because it takes a few moments away from the pain of it all.
Yes. Now, you knew... Is it true? My mum told me that you knew Kenny Everett, right?
Yeah, I did.
And, I was just reading about Kenny Everett in the
But it was all in the best possible taste.
What's the comedian called who goes up and down the stage? Michael McIntyre. Whose mum was really good friends with Kenny Everett, and they used to go to Waitrose in Temple Fortune, which is where I used to live. But my parents used to let me watch the Kenny Everett show.
Yes.
With what was that guy? Sid Snott.
Yep.
But he was someone. His mission in life was obviously just to make people laugh, right?
He was a genius.
Yeah.
And may I say, he was in real life the nicest, quietest, most charming guy.
Yeah.
And what I loved about that, when he was off, and he'd talk like we're talking and have a lovely conversation. And much missed. I thought he was my inspiration.
He was a lot.
Radio.
He was my absolute.
You have no idea who he is.
Should I have know who these people
Kenny
are?
Everett. Oh, just Google him.
It rings a bell.
He had he became. He was
James,
a DJ.
I've got a book
Capital.
on him. I'll lend it to you. It's fine.
James, I don't have long enough to talk to your mum occasionally, I should tell you. But the interesting, you talk about inspirations, and you're an inspirator. And I had no idea this was going to come up in the conversation. But
he was an inspirator.
He was my inspiration. Myself and Nicky Horn were schoolboy friends. We were at different schools, but we were school friends since we were 14 years old. And we both would listen to a thing called the Kenny and Cash Combine, which was Kenny Everett and Dave Cash. Years ago, we were little kids, me and Nicky Horn, and we're still good friends. And we'd think, they're great. Never thinking we'd go and end up working on the same radio station. We were children. We were at school.
Actually, that's where, because I used to know and work with Paul McKenna, who also was on Capital.
I worked with Paul as well.
Yeah.
Another very nice guy.
He's mesmerising.
Absolutely.
We were on the phone the other day. He's a charming guy and done remarkably well.
I worked with him. I learned a lot with him. I used to hypnitise people with him. I remember hypnotising
second
Steve
guest who's come in, who's worked with Paul and used to do that. Yeah, who was the other guy?
Do you remember his name?
Kevin Lay.
Kevin Lay. Kevin Lay.
He does
fascinating fellow.
It's all it's all different ways of like dealing with anxiety and stuff like that, but by reacting with like parts of the body. So he says if
like
you
an EFT, sort of.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Did you still practice hypnotherapy then?
Only now as I'm talking to you, and it didn't work.
Nice try.
When you wake up, Phil, you're going to have curly hair. Curly hair.
Yeah, that would never happen to me.
No,
what have you done?
I don't know. It's amazing, isn't it? Back to you. So, tell us a little. I'm always fascinated how people end up where they are, because here you are. You're like one of the top inspirational speakers. You got books out, this, that, and the other. So you're a big deal. What was your? There you are. You're in 1 minute. You're in Temple Fortune.
Yeah.
Popping into Daniel's for a quick bagel, and then the next thing is you're this big deal. What? Because you're hungry.
Now.
It's lunchtime.
We can get you a bagel.
God, could you please stop moaning?
So, in answer
I've got a guest in the
your
studio.
question, so I basically spent most of my life trying to prove to the world that I was somebody based on my own.
Why? Why did you want to do
my own
that?
Imperfections, insecurities, which most people have, which is another.
Everybody has that.
Yeah, absolutely. Few people talk about them. Right? Isn't that one of the goals of what you're trying to do?
Totally.
Is to get people to face up to the fact that 800,000 people in 2012 took their own life. I don't know how many of them. 80% male.
You know why we started this radio station? Because one day I was on the BBC and the news that day was the suicide figures. I looked at them, 80% male, 20% female, and I thought, dear God.
I didn't know that.
Dear God, that is horrendous. And I was chatting to Howard Jameson. We said, let's kick this off. And we did it. That was actually the igniter for this thing.
Yeah. So I think shocked. Like lots of people, trying to prove that you're somebody can actually burn you out eventually, because you're not really being fulfilled. Because even though you might write books or appear on whatever television, that it still doesn't really hit the mark deep down inside. There's still a feeling. So my life massively changed 8 years ago. My wife was diagnosed with a very aggressive brain tumor and given 18 months to live. So that obviously...
And you're a young guy, so presumably she was...
She's 14 years younger than me. I'm now 49 in this year.
Excuse me?
49 in May. Jesus. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I swear,
you could
you're
afford
49?
Yeah, in May.
I thought you were like 30-something.
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
Now you're really
I really commend.
Seriously?
Yeah. I try to look after myself. I want to take the lead in three big areas of life. One is my work, one is my health, and one is the relationships.
What happened to your wife, more importantly?
Having brought up in Hampstead Garden Suburb by two wonderful parents, my dad always said, son, it's not what you know, it's who you know. My mum is
Your dad's a wise man.
He is a wise man. He's not here anymore. He's popped up there. Last year he popped away. And my mum, that's okay.
I like the way you say popped away.
Yeah,
that means you're going to see him again?
Yeah, I hope so. In some way, who knows?
That's a really nice way. Yeah,
That's sweet.
I
just say,
that was one
my
of the-
dad's dead, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, he's not dead, is he? He's living in this room. I'm talking about him. But you know what? This is the thing. This is the thing I was thinking about coming here today and meeting you guys. Was what I want to do with my life is I want to pass things on. And most of what I'm passing on, they weren't my ideas. They were passed on to me, like from my parents or from other people who I've learned about. It's like, what do we want to pass on?
So,
what I liked is someone actually once said we're catalysts for tradition. I like that. I was once told that we are but mere catalysts for tradition. I like that.
Yeah, and I think that's what you want to pass on. Right?
I'm more concerned trying to
going
get back to your
story.
wife.
Okay, so my dad said it's not what you know, it's who you know. My mum has always said there's an answer to everything. My mum has shown me that. So it's not what you know, it's who you know. My wife is in the Royal Free. I called up a coach that had been coaching me for a number of years. I said what had happened, and he said, find people that are still alive with the same brain tumour and find out why. That was a really good bit of advice. And the next thing he said is, what is she going to do when she gets better? And I said, she's been given 18 months. And I'll never forget what he said. He went, so what? People defy the odds all the time. You defied the odds in being born. So I did find people that were still alive. Many of them mentioned this Polish doctor's name called Dr. Stanislaw Buzinski. Huge amounts of controversy about this doctor. You couldn't make it up. But I was speaking to people that were still alive.
Who'd been to him?
Yeah, absolutely. And then I spoke to a few people. I know I worked on GMTV for a number of years, so I know Dr. Hilary Jones. I asked him, I said, what should I do? He looked into it and he said, well, I wouldn't stay here. I'd go, But there were other people who said, do not go. You mustn't go. The treatment cost a lot of money. It was about $200,000. But we went to, and by the way, I made a film about this because the doctor who was treating my wife was being taken to court by the Texas Medical Board. And if he'd been convicted, they would have taken my wife off the treatment. And by the way, I also had to ask a doctor, I had to find a doctor that would oversee the treatment. So I didn't ask Dr. Hilary Jones, but I did ask a whole lot of other doctors. They all said no. And then Dr. Lawrence...
This treatment was outside of the UK?
Yeah, because it wasn't a nice guideline. It wasn't.
I get that. But so where was it?
It was in Houston, Texas. We went over there.
He was
7
Polish,
weeks.
the doctor?
Yes.
Living in
Houston,
All
yes.
right, okay, I got the point.
And all these doctors I asked said no. And then one doctor, Dr. Lawrence Buckman, who was the chair of the GP Association, he said yes, which was amazing because, and he said, I asked him, why did you decide to do it? He thought, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? So my wife, who I'm sure is listening now, when you talk about inspiration, just to fast forward the story, 3 years after she got better, I asked her, I said, do you remember what my coach said about what you're going to do when you get better? And she started crying. And the reason she started crying was my wife didn't have a future. Her future was not to die. If you know anyone who's ever been diagnosed with a condition and you ask them to think about their future is, well, I just don't want to die. And I actually believe that most of us, it might not be as catastrophic as that, but if you ask people, it's a weird question when someone says, what do you want to do with your life? Or where do you want to be? Or what would you like the legacy of your life to be? I like that question. When it's over, what do you want people to say? What do you want people to remember?
You probably don't realise how poignant, and this is killing me, this conversation, because my wife died from a brain tumour. So it's great that it worked, but I have to tell you that it was, first of all, breast cancer, and then went to lungs, and then went to her brain. It was horrendous, and our twin boys were 5. Now, the point of that is not, oh, poor old me, because I don't give a shit. What I do care about is that every charlatan in the world, because of who I was at the time, came out the woodwork with the most bizarre, stupid, crazy suggestions, all of which involve vast sums of money, and all of which we said no to. One of the things we did was some stuff with magnetism. One of the things I totally still believe will be proved is that sugar will be proved to be as bad as tobacco, not cigars, cigarettes I'm talking about, It will. It might take a couple of 2 or 3 generations, but it will be seen to be as evil as smoking cigarettes. But people don't get it because the lobby's too big. But we're not going to go into that now. So I'm thrilled.
We'll get you.
I'm thrilled. Well, you can come back. I'm thrilled that it worked out because a lot of these alternative things are plain bonkers and a load of crap. And it's a money-making scheme. I mean, I can't tell you what we will put through. And the fact that it worked is fantastic.
So, well, there was 2 things.
Fantastic.
Thank you. There's 2 things I wanted to just come back and say, just so everyone knows. We sat down with Hannah's neuro-oncologist because we have to see him twice a year. Hannah has to have MRI scans. And he said the other day, about 3 weeks ago, he said, your results are perfect. You don't have to have a scan for another year. You can have a baby. Which is it's crazy because these things happen. But back to you, if you don't mind. In my head, I was just going. So 5-year-olds, twins. Mm-hmm. What must you have found in yourself? And this is what fascinates me about human beings: is what do human beings have inside them to do something amazing? And unfortunately, we only normally get to see that part of us in times of crisis. So what did you find in you to deal with that? But then also
didn't think it was amazing at all. I didn't have a choice.
Oh,
you got 2 choices. You got 2 choices. You can lay down on the road and get run over and call it a day, or you can say screw this. And there was responsibility. Luckily, somebody came into my life who I wouldn't have been able to bring the children where they are now. One's studying at Oxford, one's studying at Bath. They're all fantastic. Plus, they were incredibly premature, so they were very ill when they were born. So it's a miracle either of them are here at all. But they're now 6'3",
and they carry the spirit of their mother, right? You can see that.
I don't know. She was. I don't know. I have to say they're their own people. I'm not really sure about carrying spirit.
Well, not the spirit. I just mean the essence. I mean, is that. Have you seen that film, the documentary called 3 Identical Strangers? Have you seen that? I haven't.
I really want to see that.
It is unbelievable. 3 twin, sorry, there you go, dyslexic KO. Triplets that were basically for a social experiment were taken. Well, they were up for adoption. But it's fascinating because it basically raises that question about nature and nurture.
Oh, yeah.
But really, actually, I'm not going to say any more about it because it will spoil it for you.
No, I know. Don't worry. I know the premise. So you're not going to spoil it for me. Maybe for other people listening.
Yeah,
but
just that whole thing of nature and nurture.
I totally believe
but it wasn't.
Nature's hardwired.
But you know what? The study wasn't about them per se. It was actually about different types of parenting. They put them in with 3 different types of parents. Parents who didn't show much emotion was one. Another type of parent was one who kind of was, really loving and listened.
We're talking about James's mum, I think.
Yeah, I like James.
Again?
I hadn't forgotten, James. Don't. I'm not as stupid as I pretend.
James's mum is coming in after the break, so it's fine.
Good. She can give her opinion. We would,
Yeah, we can all go home because you just say hi and that's it for 2 hours.
Yes.
Right. So, all right. Okay. So then you decided you were going to now do something. Big time.
We've got to go for a break. I'm sorry, this conversation is fascinating, I know.
No, you just want to go and talk to your mum again, don't you? Right, we're going to go for a short ad break and then we'll be right back with our special guest. I'm loving this conversation, Pete Cohen, Inspirator.
You're listening to Russ Kane on Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hello, I'm Lawrence Davis. I'm the proud owner of Started Cigars in Mayfair and Knightsbridge. For the past 60 years, we've been providing the world's best Cuban cigars. When it comes to cigars, there's no other than Started Cigars from Mayfair and Knightsbridge. We at Starters would like to wish Men's Radio Station every support in their task for helping men's emotional and mental well-being. Check them out. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's Radio Station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
Let me tell you about Jermyn Street Theatre. We are the smallest theatre in the West End, only 70 seats. We are a registered charity and not grant-aided, run by a small team of volunteers and trustees. Jermyn Street Theatre is a hidden gem. It combines the comfort and convenience of the West End with the intimacy of a studio. Every seat has a perfect view of the stage, and even a whisper is audible. This is a secret theatre in the heart of the West End, once found, never forgotten.
Hi, I'm Noel McDermott, licensed psychotherapist. I'll be launching my new show, Wellbeing Wednesdays, on Men's Radio Station on the 17th of April, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. I'll be talking to my guests about all things mental health and well-being. I'll be offering practical help and advice on issues around relationships, anxiety, depression, drug and alcohol. I'll be focusing on your mental wealth and how you can increase it. So, come check me out on April the 17th at 9 p.m. with Wellbeing Wednesdays. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
Not ready for making text digital? Struggling to keep up with changes? Or do you simply need a friendly and reliable face to handle your accounting needs? With over 20 years of experience, BBK Partnership in 5 London areas provide personal advice, and all our partners are readily available in person and by phone at times that suit you. Give BBK a call today, 0208 216 2520, or visit our website, bbkca.com.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
I actually think sometimes I've entered a parallel universe. I kind of pinch myself saying, is this actually happening, or am I just back in the 60s again?
We've got cupcakes.
Yeah, you're happy now. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk. I'm Russ Kane with Phil Dave, who is now so happy because he's got cupcakes.
He's on a sugar rush, sorry.
He's so excited. I will not be partaking of the cupcakes, but thank you so much for bringing them in. James Blake, Boy Wonder producer, now joined by his mum. Hello, Ms. Blake.
Nice to be here. How can I help you?
I don't know yet. We'll have to see. This was Phil Dave's great idea, bringing you in from the green room.
Excuse me, I think you'll find that it was our esteemed guest Pete's idea as well. It wasn't just me.
Pete doesn't get a vote in this, as a guest.
Yes.
And that's how it is on Radio
Thank
4.
you very
I'm
much.
John Humphries. Just let me finish, please. So our special guest is Pete Cohen, who is an inspirator, and we're trying to get to the fact of how he started to do all the good stuff that he does. Feel free, James's mum, to jump in any time.
Well, as we were speaking before...
I didn't mean now.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Kane.
Yeah, I run a tight ship. Now, Pete, because he's coming
Can you be more directed, Mr. Kane, please?
Me more directive?
You don't need to
I
encourage.
don't even know what that means. All right, so Pete, right, you decided that you wanted to prove to the world. What are you doing now?
I've always wanted to help people. I've written, this is my 19th book, believe it or not, and many of the books are best-selling books all over the world.
19th?
But this is the book I'm most proud of because I really put my heart and soul into it in terms of, since I wrote my first book in 1997, which was called Slimming with Pete, and some people still think it was called Swimming with Pete, but there was no swimming involved in the book. And that book was actually forwarded by Paul McKenna. It was probably the book that I was so inspired to write because...
You just dropped a name there, sorry.
Yes, there you go. I did. I can drop a few more if you want.
Yeah, please. We like that.
Well, no, I won't, because that's not what this is about. I spent
really, it is. No, it is.
Really?
It
Okay,
is.
well, I can drop some names. I spent 3 years interviewing some of the top leaders in business and trying to find out what makes them great leaders. So these are the sorts of leaders who are inspired to bring other people forwards rather than telling people what to do, to create autonomy in organizations where people feel that they're a part of something, they can get better at something.
Who do you rate?
Of the people I interviewed, you might not have heard of any of them. There was a lady called Delphine Riviere, who is the managing director of Accenture, or Alistair, who is the MD of AkzoNobel, who own Dulux. A lot of these leaders, they don't want the limelight. They're obsessed with creating teams of people where everyone feels they're a part of something, because I think that's something that human beings, what they want to feel, that they are connected, that we all care and we all connect. And what's this all about? It's the same thing, right? You're a team of people that if you tried to do it on your own, it probably wouldn't have the same...
You have no idea, Pete. Every day.
There seems to be quite a lot of Star Wars references.
Oh, yeah, well,
we like Star Wars.
Star Wars, that whole force, the force for good or evil. Thank you for saying that, because actually the heart of this book is a guy called Joseph Campbell. So Joseph Campbell was George Lucas's best friend, and he studied mythology. He looked at all of the stories which have pretty much ever been written and could see this thing, the hero's journey, which is in... You name a film, whether it's Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Wizard of Oz.
There's always a story arc following the hero.
Yeah, exactly.
Always.
And it's the same thing for the leader's journey. If you want to be a great leader, it's a journey. In fact, the hero. Do you want to know what the word hero means?
We're going to find out.
It comes from the Greek word hieros, which means protector. So heroes are protectors of people. They're not the killers of bad people. Even though that's maybe something they also have to do from time to time.
Well, that's how you protect, isn't it? You have to sometimes do...
And that's what the world needs, more heroic people who want to take care of people.
Right,
what can I do for you?
Let me ask you a question then, and we're going to come back to your books and everything like that. Why do we now live in a time... No, I'm going to rewind slightly, then you'll see where my point is coming from. I've often gone on the radio and said, the life that we lead now, there is virtually no one that we look up to. Religion's gone out the window. We don't believe in our political leaders. They're all absolutely they're all terrible. they're all basically just rubbish. So we don't have any heroes, and that whole assembly, if you like, that whole belief system's been completely trashed. It's been dismantled, and I think a lot of people are utterly lost. So which leads the question, one, do we need them?
Definitely.
But shouldn't we be happy with ourselves? But why is there nobody now who you feel is inspirational? Life just feels full of trash.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, I think it taps into part of our psychology of wanting to follow people. So we are looking up to people, or some people are, but the people who they're looking up to, there's not much to them. There's not much substance in terms of what that person stands for.
They don't stand for. They stand for a quick buck.
Yeah.
Is what they stand for. They have no redeeming features. Most of these people.
And real inspiring people have values and virtues that many people aspire to, like the value of honesty, the value of love, the value of kindness, the value of creativity. And yeah, we do need people to look up to. In fact, I was just reading all about Elizabeth I. I had no idea the impact that woman had on women. I know this is a men's radio, but...
No, we have women's radio station as well, so you can say what you like.
But, just how I believe we should be looking at all of us having heroes and people that we look up to, whether they're dead or alive, but they're people who stand for something and stand for, I suppose, the good of humanity. And I think there's never been a more important time where you see, obviously, what's going on with Brexit, and you see what's going on with people like Donald Trump, how these people actually can get themselves into a position of power. Kind of says a lot that, a part of what my book is about is people saying, I want to take the lead in my own life. I want to be... we are all leaders. What led us out of bed this morning? What led us to make the decisions? What led you to not have one of those cupcakes? What will lead you to make multiple decisions throughout the whole day? Mm. It's time for us to take responsibility. And I know that's a harsh word, or it's a cold-hearted way of looking at it. But if you don't take responsibility, then what happens is you start blaming people for the situation that you're in.
Pete, we live in a blame culture. This is something that drives me mad, especially when I'm on the BBC, and I have to keep talking about knife crime. And I'm sick to death of everyone in the blame culture. It kind of starts at home. If you don't take responsibility, it's just going to spill out on the street.
Well, yeah, and human beings love to talk. We love to gossip. And we love to put the responsibility on somebody else, rather than saying, this it's up to me to do something about this. And I don't know why there is so much of an issue with that, probably more than ever, of why people aren't prepared to look in the mirror and go, I'm taking responsibility.
Because I'll tell you why. Because we've been told, and especially, and I will mention the name, and we're getting one of his sidekicks into the studio in a few weeks, but with Tony Blair's culture of, and it's not a political point, this is just a social point, that everyone's a winner, and we're all winners, and everything's great, and nothing is ever your fault. And it's like, well, that's just simply not true. Some things are your fault, and sometimes there are winners, and sometimes, I'm sorry to say, there are losers. If I'm in a race, and it's a running race, I'm going to lose. There's no point giving me a prize for coming last. It's nonsense.
Yeah. I think that's often where we kind of grow. It's a kind of a cliche again. There's nothing wrong with losing. It's just, what are you going to learn from what happens to you? If you want to learn with every setback that any human being has, like what you described, you know, what happened to your wife. With me, it was horrific what happened, but it was actually one of the best experiences of my life because of what has come out of it. I'm fortunate, you know, maybe to have that mindset.
It's had a very positive effect, and you've been blessed, and you were incredibly lucky.
At the time, it was horrendous.
Well, it is horrendous.
And human beings do have something in us that allows us to move on, you know?
Well, I think you kind of have to, don't you? Otherwise, you're just going to be stuck there forever. So, where is this book? Pass me the book, Phil Dave, if you'll be so kind.
The book is actually not. It's only available. It will be on general release, believe it or not.
General release, like a movie.
Well, in July. But it is available now from my website.
So we're getting a bit of a sneaky peek.
It is called...
Sorry?
So we're getting a bit of a sneaky peek here.
No, definitely. Ooh. People can get it if they go to inspirators.me. They can get hold of the book. Plus, there's a whole load of extras as well, because I spent 3 years interviewing, and we filmed all the interviews, and people can get access to all of that. My goal is just to inspire more people to do something that makes them feel good.
I love I got to tell you, I'm just looking at it now. I hadn't seen it before, and because we weren't previewed it, and I love the way.
You know why that was? It only arrived on Friday at 4:45.
If I ever live long enough, I'll see my book as well. So this is. I love the way you've laid this out in this kind of little. In these bits.
Boxes.
It's digestible, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's not just a sort of page after page of text after text after text. It's almost as if you've got goals to reach. So you just read a section, then you move on to another section, then another.
Yeah.
It's really
I'm guessing that was done deliberately.
Yeah, definitely. Just to give it a bit more of a visual feel, and just to make... I actually want people to feel like I'm coaching them as they go through the book. So it's been written in a style where hopefully they feel I'm actually talking to them.
You see, this is so true. I'm just looking at random here. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Is that not the truth?
I was really interested before with what you were mentioning about blame and how that came up in conversation, because is it fair comment, and I think either you or indeed Miss B could answer this, is it fair to say that until people actually start taking responsibilities from their actions, they can't develop as people?
Well, go on.
Well, it's about self-awareness. People, they will blame others until the pain that they're in, if they can't realise that they have to work on themselves, we will apportion blame all the time.
So, but then surely that's a vicious circle then, isn't it?
But it's about self-awareness. If you don't understand, if you have no insight into your soul and the pain that you're in, you're going to lash out.
I think it's almost like a natural thing that human beings tend to do. Is like, I'm in pain, so it's not my fault. I need something, rather than to look into yourself and go, okay, what's going on here?
Whenever you hit the edge of the table, you always blame the table, don't you? You always say, "Oh, bloody table," you know, and then you're the one that walked into it.
Yes.
Not all of us do, James.
Well, it's that thing of extreme responsibility. Really, in fact, this is because I absolutely love learning, and I heard this the other day, and it just blew my mind. And I've been interrupting people when they say this. Do you know people that say this? The problem is.
Yes.
Have you ever met anyone who goes, well, you see, the problem is, the next time someone says that, I dare you to say this. What are you trying to create? And immediately they'll go, well, the problem is, and you go, whoa. What are you trying to create? And for me, it's forced me and myself to go, get out of the problem and think about what the solution is to the problem.
Absolutely. And do you know what? That actually takes us right back to the start of today's programme. There's an awful lot of people who have quite rightly said, when it comes to a number of political subjects at the moment, what they don't like and what they don't want. But very, very few have come up with what they do want and what is achievable.
Yeah. So it's fascinating, because if you think about why Brexit has come about, it's probably come about because there are no real inspirational people who stand for the good of our country. And I mean, I don't know, it's all just so messed up, but at some point we've got to start thinking about what do we actually want to create, what is going to be the legacy from all of this.
Do you know what? I actually think I was really trying to avoid Brexit, because I have to talk about it on the BBC all the time, and we just call it the B word because I am bored stupid with it, discussing it all the time.
But
No, hang on, here's the thing, right? It's this. I think in the coming years, people like yourself and your colleagues will be spending decades looking at the effect, the aftermath, and the destruction that this whole process has done on the psyche of this country. It's gone far beyond politics. And in my lifetime, I've never seen the country so divided. I've never known people be so absolutely put into tribes as they are now. And it's caused, it's reshaped the landscape in ways that these morons who started this whole nonsense had no idea, and who walked away from it, and on all sides. And there's not going to be a good outcome. I mean, that is for damn sure. But people like yourself will be analysing this for years to come.
So I'm curious, talking about inspirators, what would you do if you could sort this out?
I couldn't. I'm not clever enough. I mean, I've been asked that question a lot on the radio and in articles and stuff like that. If I was smart enough, I'd say this is what we're going to do. I have absolutely no idea. It's like you might as well say to me, well, Russ, I've got a job for you Monday morning, tomorrow, 9 o'clock. You're in charge of the CERN Large Hadron Collider. I'd go, great, thank you. Don't know what I'm doing. It'd be the same thing. I'd have the same answer.
But if you found yourself in this position where all of a sudden you were responsible for Brexit, who would you get around you immediately to help you?
Oh, who would I get?
Yeah.
I would get, obviously, James's mum, because...
Yeah, obviously.
She's Lady of Britannia.
She's there. She's already there.
What would I do? I'd tell you exactly what I'd do. I would get rid of every single politician on every side of every...
And start again.
No. I would bring in the top, smart business leaders, not the big mouths on television who are just actors. I'm talking about the people that you know, the people who've actually achieved, the people behind the scenes who really do know what they're doing, and that's the way that I do it.
Yeah.
Because you can put aside all the, we want sovereignty, we want this, we want that and the other. At the end, ultimately, it comes down to money. This whole damn thing comes down to money.
So what about, I didn't know anything about Elizabeth I, but she was an amazing leader because, she put people around her who perhaps most people wouldn't want in your immediate sphere of influence, who basically helped her deal with the invasion of the Spanish, the invasion of the French, multiple death squads that were sent by the Vatican to kill her. But I believe that she stood for something more than just herself. And she was one of the first people to say you can believe whatever you want if you believe it in your own home. And she sponsored Shakespeare, who wrote about women in a way which had never been written before. I think there are inspirational leaders in history who stood for something more than just, I don't know. I mean, what does Theresa May stand for?
Absolutely nothing.
Don't
Really?
all of these particular instances that we're referring to, though, have one theme in common, is that everyone but everyone is seeing the negativity shining out of them. What if we were to actually start totally rethinking our attitudes as individuals, as civilians of this great country of ours, towards every problem that we face?
Yeah.
If we start looking at the positive elements of them rather than the negative, and I don't believe anyone who turns around and sort of says, there is no positive, there's nothing. Every situation has a positive spin on it. Every single situation.
Yeah.
You might have to really look for it, but it's always there.
That's not true.
It's
Well,
I don't believe that's true at all.
Only if they're well enough. You can't, when you're battered down or you've had a nervous, I think they're having a political nervous breakdown now in the cabinet. So, and also there's just too much information. At the time of Elizabeth I, she didn't have like WhatsApp going, hey, don't touch that Drakey boy or whatever.
The guy that won, back to the Nobel Prize, but the guy who won the Nobel Prize in 1972, I can't remember his name either, he basically said the biggest issue in the world is too much information.
Yes.
In 1972?
Yes.
What was going on in 1972? I think that is
flares mainly and tank tops.
If you meet when I'm working and there's people that are just so lonely and are able to find a partner, male or female, and they say that they've had, if they'll meet someone on social media, they'll have a bust up before the first date, whereas before you would arrange to meet someone, pick them up, drop them off, and people are Googling this and finding out about this, and it just destroys the beauty
of just actually being there.
I believe the 1972 winner I can just about pronounce because it looks like his name is German, Heinrich Boll.
Amazing, eh?
Yeah. So
What
I
a
can
great
just about
man he
pronounce
was.
that.
Well, Heinrich, you were talking about. Right. There's something in you, but there's a load of things. I really like this book.
Well, I've got a copy of it for you, which I'm going to
very much.
sign.
As I said, in case you're wondering, who the hell are we talking to? That's how they talk on Radio 4. Pete Cohen, life coach, and the book is called Inspirators Leading the Way in Leadership. Clever.
Thank you.
Now, they've divided. This is something which I'm very much agree with, and I'm on page 120. I've picked it at random, but it's just caught my eye. And it's dividing people into categories. And before you say, don't categorize me, just have a listen. Just have a listen and see. An inspirator, that's someone who's working to become their best self and to be the example. Okay, I really like that. Coach, who's looking to bring out the best in others via a range of methods. Right? A masterminder, who is there to support and to provide skills and abilities within a team working towards a common goal, James Blake. And then we've got this, and this is where I don't have issue. I agree, because I find them, I call them energy vampires, and you've called it in the book a naysayer. Wonderful.
Or a mood hoover.
A mood hoover, a buzz killer as well, as they get to that. A naysayer who sees the negative in a situation. They don't have evil intent, but will always give the reason why not to take action. The best advice I ever got, Pete, was just make the decision. Just don't sit just do it. Yeah. Either go yes or no. Eventually it all comes out kind of the same in the end. But just do something. Don't do nothing.
So the word decision comes from decisive, which comes from the French word to décider, which is to cut off. So when you make a decision, it's like you're cutting yourself off from doing anything else. This is what you need to do. And I think people need to be more decisive in life today, because it's so easy to make a decision to do something and then get swayed somewhere else, and that's where procrastination kind of manifests.
Absolutely drives me mad. Then you've got, and this is something we deal with a lot on men's radio station and women's radio station too, a victim who sees the actions of others as having evil intent, and that if only circumstances, and you've listed here the diet, the job, the car, the money, other people, and the universe were on their side, everything would be great. I think that is so to the point of, if I just had this, what it'll mean is you'll have a Mercedes and you'll still feel rubbish.
Yeah. Let me ask your opinion about something, right? So someone said to me, again, who I look up to, said, listen, the oldest institution in your country, because he's not from here, he asked me what it was. And I thought, I don't know. He said, it's the kingdom. The kingdom is the oldest, older than religion in Great Britain. And he said, the issue you have in Britain is people are servants. They have a victim mentality because you're here to serve. And I don't know what you think about that, but I think a lot of people have that mentality. And I don't know how much of that is gone through the fact that we've all grown up in a class society, even though that seems to have kind of gone away. The fact that we are victims and we are serving.
Whilst Ross was reading out those descriptions,
I'd love to know what's going on. Sorry.
As soon as you were describing victim,
yeah,
I thought the number of people who come across as victim is just unbelievable. No one, as I said before, takes responsibility. No one wants to recognize that they can be in charge of sort of whatever lays ahead of them. It's just absolutely extraordinary how we have almost allowed this country to breed generation after generation now of people who play victim and who expect other people to clear up their mess and to pick up the pieces for them.
Yeah.
Do it yourself. Seriously.
But I just came back from South Africa. I was there for 2 weeks. I mean, that's another conversation, and I really, really found it incredibly difficult.
Which part?
Being there. Cape Town, Joburg, and Durban.
Very good.
I found it really, really difficult because you see how people are living there, how difficult it is. And it's not that they're victims.
There is a real class divide.
They're just a part of a system that has really, and especially in Cape Town, you see the divide between the rich and the poor is just like, this is wrong. I mean... But is it really wrong? Is it just the system that people live in, and you see how people are trying to survive? We're so lucky to be here in this country and to have, when we're just throwing it all away.
Yeah. I spend a lot of time...
And I sound like a victim again.
I spend a lot of time in Los Angeles, and one of the things that has stunned me, and each time I go back it's worse, is that you can be in Beverly Hills, Rodeo Drive, or that area, and it's the most affluent area probably in the world. It is where you will see a man who's had his handmade suit, and I saw this last time, the exact colour of his brand new Rolls convertible, and standing there posing. It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous, and you look at it and you think, idiot. But anyway, I mean, you do that. And then you can travel for 8 minutes, 7 minutes, and there is an entire city of tents, and you think, wait a minute, hang on a second. 7 minutes ago, I'm looking at a guy wearing probably a $5,000 suit, standing by a $400,000 convertible Rolls Royce, the new ones. And 7 minutes later, these people are living in tents in LA, in the richest country in the world. So it's not confined to the South African situation.
Yeah,
it's like,
everywhere.
how the hell can that happen? I'm going to go back to your list for a second. That was victim, and we've got two more. Rebel, who want something different in life and to play by their own rules. Okay. And then nemesis, who has a different agenda, will make every effort to divert you away from your goal to achieve theirs. Why am I looking at you?
Are you looking at me?
I'm just looking at you. Just checking because your mum's here, so you're safe. Yes, right. So
hardly think James comes across as the stereotypical nemesis now.
I like James.
$1 million.
I love James.
Yes, we know that.
Thank you.
Producer to the stars. Right. So this is really
And apparently now his mother.
Inspirator, coach, masterminder, naysayer, victim, rebel, and nemesis. Absolutely brilliant. I'm loving this book.
That's for you.
This is for me?
Yeah, I just need to sign it.
I want it signed then. I'm not going to get a book, because that could be a thing. So do you think that kind of divides people up neatly?
I think we can all be those types of roles. We can all be a bit of everything.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you can bounce in between them as well, can't you? You can be someone's nemesis, you can be a naysayer one day, and you can be a...
Yeah.
Is being a rebel wrong?
No, I think there's a rebel in every single one of us. And you know how I know this?
How do you know?
You ready? Everyone ready? I'm going to say something, and I want you to notice what happens when I say this. Are you ready?
If you punch me in the face, I will react.
There you go.
Not very
I won't do that.
but he'll
Damn,
react.
my thing is foiled. No, this is what I'm going to say. You ready? Tidy your room.
Oh.
Spotless.
Needs a tidy.
Yeah, I mean, when you say that to most people, a rebel of them goes, what? There is something called, what is it called? It is called psychological reactance. When you ask someone to do something, most people will immediately react like, what? Defiant.
It's the inner child work, defiance.
Yes. You work with McKenna, right, who's an old mate, and somebody years and years and years, I'm going back maybe 20 years or something, he was heavily into NLP, and what's that called?
Richard Bandler?
No, it's another, I'm not going to mention his name, doesn't matter who he is.
Richard Bandler?
No, I'm not going to mention his name. Don't go through the whole list of everyone you ever stood next to in the bus queue.
Sorry, photographic evidence, by the way.
What's that? Your room.
That's my room, it's spotless.
Lovely, thank you, well done.
Just in case.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Does John Humphreys have this?
No, he doesn't.
Right, the guy...
He could, though, if you're listening, John.
I'm just going to answer my question. Right, so this was this Pete. And we were in a meeting, and he suddenly said, sit up straight! and I found myself, and I'm in my own home, and he did this, and he said, why did you do that?
Yeah.
And I thought, why the hell did I do that? I'm in my own home. This guy who I was working with him on a couple of projects, an interesting guy. And he produced books as well, and he was going on about that. And he suddenly yelled at me out of the blue, sit up straight, and you automatically sat up straight. It's the weirdest thing.
Authority and being led.
It was a weird thing.
Being led.
Came out of nowhere.
Come on, I would love to know who has been your biggest influences, your people that have led you to where you are today, apart from Kenny Everett.
Oh,
all of us.
That's really interesting. My dad, for my business morals, because he always said, I do a deal on a handshake, and I do.
Yeah.
Set all this up with Howard Jameson on a handshake. I said, I don't want a contract. We're not having contracts because I've spent fortunes on contracts. There's always a grey area. If you can't trust somebody on a handshake, screw it. I'm not going to get involved. Don't know. Too many people to mention.
Probably don't think about it too much. Yeah, definitely me, my parents. James, you must say your mum.
I was going to say mum, definitely the biggest.
She's in the room.
My mum is probably watching this or listening to this. She's like she's unreal. She's unreal. What she has been through with the passing of my dad recently, just how she has decided to, move on and move forwards. And I can't...
Bless her for that.
Yeah, how difficult that must be. But then, life is not easy, right? I mean, who said it was easy? Who said it was
It's not
and this whole
supposed to be
fairy
easy.
tale business, I watched Creed 2 coming back from South Africa, which is similar to Creed 1, which is similar to Rocky Balboa, to Rocky 5. It's the same story. We are heroes it sounds like a cliche, but we are all heroes in our own story, and we love to watch these films because we identify with them, and that's part of what my work is about. I want people to feel like I'm the hero in my own story.
How effective is your work when you've been doing one of your talks?
It's getting much, much more effective because I'm getting better, and he's winding us up.
Oh, we've got to go for another. I'm sorry.
He's been winding me up for years. I've got to be honest with you.
You don't have to rush off, do you, Pete?
No.
Then you can
I like his voice.
I'm supposed to be in Gravesend.
It's comforting.
Are you?
Have you done something wrong?
Yes, I know.
Well,
have you been to Gravesend? Why is it called Gravesend?
Because that's where the pit plagues ended.
Yes.
And on that note, that lovely
that's
note.
it. Thank you very much, Pete Cohen. The book is called Inspirators, Leading the Way in Leadership.
Get it at inspirators.me. That's the only place you can get this book.
And me is M-I?
M-E.
Oh, M-E.
M-E.
Because I saw something with MI365 or something.
Inspirators.me.
Okay.
But hopefully, Pete, you'll stick around for a bit. So.
Yes.
Okay. Time to pay the rent.
You're listening to Russ Kane on Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hello, I'm Lawrence Davis. I'm the proud owner of Stout Cigars in Mayfair and Knightsbridge. For the past 60 years, we've been providing the world's best Cuban cigars. When it comes to cigars, there's no other than Stout Cigars from Mayfair and Knightsbridge. We at Stouters would like to wish Men's Radio Station every support in their task for helping men's emotional and mental well-being. Check them out. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's Radio Station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
Let me tell you about Jermyn Street Theatre. We are the smallest theatre in the West End, only 70 seats. We are a registered charity and not grant-aided, run by a small team of volunteers and trustees. Jermyn Street Theatre is a hidden gem. It combines the comfort and convenience of the West End with the intimacy of a studio. Every seat has a perfect view of the stage, and even a whisper is audible. This is a secret theatre in the heart of the West End, once found, never forgotten.
Hi, I'm Noel McDermott, licensed psychotherapist. I'll be launching my new show, Wellbeing Wednesdays, on Men's Radio Station on the 17th of April, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. I'll be talking to my guests about all things mental health and well-being. I'll be offering practical help and advice on issues around relationships, anxiety, depression, drug and alcohol. I'll be focusing on your mental wealth and how you can increase it. So, come check me out on April the 17th at 9 p.m. with Wellbeing Wednesdays. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
Not ready for making tax digital? Struggling to keep up with changes? Or do you simply need a friendly and reliable face to handle your accounting needs? With over 20 years of experience, BBK Partnership in 5 London areas provide personal advice, and all our partners are readily available in person and by phone at times that suit you. Give BBK a call today, 0208 216 2520, or visit our website, bbkca.com.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Oh, if you could only see the chaos that happens in this studio when we do the switchover, it really is most extraordinary.
They've got it on the Facebook Live.
They've got it on Facebook Live.
They're sitting at home going, what the hell are these idiots doing?
Do you know what? They may be looking on Facebook Live, also questioning why on earth it is that some of us appear to have cat ears when you're looking on Facebook Live stream today. I do apologise. It would appear as if one of us has accidentally selected a filter that actually puts cat ears on us.
Please tell me it's not me.
When you're looking at us. So I do apologise. We're not trying to make a mockery of anything or anything like that. No, but not that to the best of my knowledge, it wasn't me.
Who was it?
So, to the best of my knowledge, it wasn't me. But anyway, even if it was, I do apologise on behalf of MRS if we are offending anybody by having cat ears. We have got a Facebook comment here, by the way. You are listening to Men's Radio Station with Russ Kane, Phil Dave, James Blake as well. And we've got a comment here on Facebook on the serious subject of eating disorders. That's how we started this show off. And person Eve says eating disorders are becoming more prevalent for men. The insidious media putting unfair expectations on both men and women is ludicrous. The pursuit of perfection is so bad for our mental health.
Who's that from?
That's from Eve on Facebook.
Oh, well, you're absolutely right. It's very true. I have been so looking forward to this. That last guest, Pete Cohen, terrific. Going to have him back. I can't wait to get tucked into that book. I've got so many books to read at the moment. I was given last night as a little thank you and a gift. I was given the biography of Maggie Smith. I can't wait to get into that.
By Maggie Smith herself.
Yeah. She wouldn't start the show till I was there after I've had my dinner. That's right. All right. I've never heard this phrase before. I was well overexcited and I thought, come on. Into the studios of a men radio station.
You nearly.
I nearly said Talk Radio. I nearly said Talk Radio because I was meant to be on Talk Radio tonight discussing my new book called The Gatekeeper, by the way. Is, wait for it, you ready? A gorgeousness coach. No, I'm not drunk. All I've had is coffee today. A gorgeousness coach. Tristan Lee, welcome. Gorgeousness coach. I'm just... All right, I got it. Just go ahead. Just tell us what it is. It's fantastic. Gorgeousness coach.
Well,
Phil paid bigoted.
On the contrary, you could learn from me.
I have nothing to add to this other because you're both so gorgeous already.
I like you.
I'm
the one that
Tristan, you can go no higher than that.
I did well not to go for Botox.
That is so the best interview we've ever had. Thank you very much.
It's always good to start with a compliment, and then if it goes downhill, then it goes downhill.
Okay.
So I, as far as I know, I'm the only gorgeousness coach because it's a term I made up.
Yeah, no, I kind of got that.
Can you imagine that?
No kidding.
Yeah, I know.
You think?
What I basically am is a health and wellness coach, but I kind of thought, how can I brand myself in a way that I think might be put a smile on people's faces and engage people in a conversation that maybe some people wouldn't ordinarily have, because you say health and wellness coach, to most people they sort of, snooze.
Do they?
I think so.
Not here.
No, not here. But I think
because
in order to stand out a little bit, I thought I'd give myself a name that's a bit more fun.
And I've got to say, if you're not watching on Facebook Live, that Tristan's come in dressed in a Peaky Blinders hat and a blue velvet bow tie.
Offset against a denim shirt. I like this.
So you got the casualness of the denim, and I have not seen a blue velvet bow tie since I was about 15.
Okay,
which is
what a memory.
This was your bow tie.
Do you know what? It probably was.
I've had this bow tie literally for 30 years.
Have you?
Since I was 2.
Since you...
Yeah, okay.
So you didn't tell us about... Just love this gorgeousness coach. There's James's mum's
Well,
back,
Miss B
everybody.
is excited.
She's excited.
I'd go and see him.
Well, you're seeing him now. That's if
It's
you've
in
got
the
another
flesh.
customer.
I know.
Got
For
another
a session.
James, this is your mother.
A counselling session.
Thank God you cleared that one up. Because
I was going to say, do you want to tell her or shall I?
Because
I thought, oh no,
it's
do I have
fun.
to break the news
You're
to
bringing
you?
out the inner child in people.
I hopefully bring out some mischief in people.
Well,
I want people to have a...
You know the expression wrong tree? Try wrong forest.
Wrong hemisphere.
In this room, if you think you need any excuse to bring out mischief, you have no idea.
Well, I think that would be, if I was a drag queen, I'd be mischief.
Oh, very good.
We like that.
I am not.
think so.
Miss Chief.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
Actually, if any of us here, we'd just potentially be Mrs. because that would be MRS, Men's Radio Station.
Yeah, everyone said that. Look, the name of your station, it spells Mrs. I said, well, that wasn't a mistake. Yes, behind every great man is an astonished woman. So, right, moving on.
Okay.
So you decided to sort of put this under the umbrella of being gorgeous, but it means there's a serious.
Yeah, my work is very serious, but the way I try and present it hopefully draws people in because it's kind of the packaging is kind of fun. I hope, but the substance there's lots of substance.
And what do you do? So a client comes to you.
Okay, so I'm a health and wellness coach. So people come to me mostly for help with food issues, with self-esteem issues. They've usually had some sort of life crisis, men and women, and they're looking to sort of build themselves back up again. So I start really with, what most people do, which is eat. I think most people eat most days. So I'm going down the food route. I've got a cookbook coming out in June.
Get you called. You can plug away.
Okay, great. Well, it's called Fed Up. And
that's
has
very
a double.
clever.
Yeah,
see what you did there.
Yeah,
I'm putting that up there with Miss Chief.
It's all about puns.
Yeah, but they're really it's really very clever in the media world.
It's about mental health. It's about food. So it's 52 quick, easy recipes to boost your mood. So they're very healthy recipes that with ingredients that help you to feel good.
And like for instance, what?
So I do sort of sweet potato flatbreads. I do
feeling happy
like
already.
banana and mango ice cream with no refined sugar. So it's all really healthy, easy, tasty stuff.
Is that healthy?
Yeah. Well, it's a lot healthier
than
refined sugar and lots of dairy.
Yeah.
And you can put blueberries and nuts in it.
Okay.
So people come to me and they usually want help to. Ultimately, people want to feel good, and lots of people don't feel good. So I offer that sort of support with coaching, or I do workshops as well.
And in your workshop, what would be the kind of way that it would go? You turn up and
say again.
You turn up and
I have a room full of eager participants just screaming my name, and.
Are you, sorry, hang on, you actually have a fan base who follows you?
Which name?
Any name they want as long as they paid to get in.
Yeah, that's it.
No, they're all looking for some inspiration. So I go through the day, is a seminar. It's all about F's. So we start off with food.
Steady on.
I know, okay, here we go. I have another book which I have written, plug the book, called Munch, Move, Moisturise.
Let's have a look at this.
I'm loving your books.
And I talk through the F's. So I always start with food, then we talk about fitness. I talk about faces as in self-care, skincare, body care. We talk about fun, we talk about feelings. So it's I like to call it F in good.
Oh, that's very clever as well.
I just came up with that one.
Well, you've got the backing of Karen in Hartlepool, so I'm anybody's now.
She's one of my clients. I know that's the one that gets people.
What made you think that? What we were talking about with Pete just now was like we're all in charge of. If you want to be, stop blaming everybody else. We're kind of in charge of our own destiny, sort of thing. So, what was the pivotal moment for you when you suddenly thought, this is what I'm going to do?
I think it was on a very serious note. I had some really bad sort of mental health issues for years, and one of the main ways I coped with that was through self-care. So learning to take care of my physical and emotional needs. So I always loved exercising, always loved eating well, and I realised actually it's very therapeutic. And it naturally came out of me sharing what I was doing with people around me. As in, when you eat better, you feel better. When you exercise more, it helps with anxiety. If you take care of yourself, helps you cope with depression or anxiety. So it came very naturally out of that. And then people were like, could you help me? Could you do a workshop? And then that kind of spiraled from there. So it came from quite a challenging place of things I was doing for myself that I was naturally sharing with other people. Then I realised there was a need for it.
So you were in this, let's call it a trough, if you like. Yes. How long were you there for?
Oh, a long time. Most of my 30s. off and on. It wasn't
Well, you
all
look
bad.
you look about
20,
12.
yeah.
I mean, as soon as you walked in, I thought,
Well,
You're younger than me.
I'm doing my GCSEs next year.
well, you look, I mean, seriously, you look like, I don't know,
really
you
meant
look
to be
maybe
doing coursework,
13 at a
so,
push. I'm not going to ask how old you are because I got fed up with Pete. He was 49 and he looked like 30.
But you have joy inside of you now, and you share that joy.
I think for me, it's about, what I'm really in is, one of the ways I think people need to, if people want to age gorgeously, or I'm not anti-aging, I'm pro-glow. I want people.
Or Gloria Hunniford.
I love Gloria Hunniford.
Glow, yeah.
I love Gloria.
She's great.
Yeah.
She's great. So I'll show you how Gloria Hunniford wears her headset.
Oh,
right. This is because she never wants to upset her.
Because this worked really well on Fate.
I don't care. I'm doing it. I know it doesn't work well. She does it like this, so she doesn't muck up her hair.
I'd be the same.
I must admit, I do understand where she's coming from, though. I mean, if it was possible for me to wear a headset underneath my chin, I would.
Yes, I wear mine. I wear mine upside down as well.
You wear yours resting on the back of your neck.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I'm not very good at things over my head unless
you're wearing a hat.
No, but in earphones.
Why?
I think because I'm of that generation where it was all about gramophones. So I'm just not feeling.
Giving away the age there.
Hang on a minute. Right, Mr. Gorgeousness coach. Am I allowed to ask how old you are?
I'm almost 48. Yeah.
I'm sorry. What?
In June. Yeah.
You are joking, right?
No.
You can hear.
I was going to say you can hear from the reaction.
You are joking me.
No.
You're what?
Yeah, it's kind of.
I thought.
Now, hang on a second. Does this kind of thing run in your family? Is this totally your own doing, or actually do you have good genetics? And this
I tell you what it is. I think oily skin helps. Being ginger helps because I don't go in the sun, but I also take really good care of myself. And I think because my family are from Iceland. There's that kind
other
of
supermarkets are available.
I always say that. I always say that. I think there's that kind of Viking kind of hardiness.
And what
Tristan,
did you come out of your depression?
Jeez,
how did you do that? What was the pivotal moment?
I think it was sink or swim. Either you go carry on down the rabbit hole, or you think, okay, well, is this? There comes a point, I think, is a tipping point, or I say to my clients, once you hit rock bottom, that's it, isn't it?
You can't go
any further. So I hit my rock bottom, and it's a horrible cliche, but then there is no further to go.
Well, no, sadly there is, and it ultimately ends with 80% of men proven within the last year it does. So there is a further to go, sadly.
Yeah. For me, my rock bottom, I suppose, was a foundation, it was like my bedrock. No, I completely identify. Yeah, I've been in that situation where I was like, do I want to carry on?
I do need to correct that statistic, by the way. That may have come across as I was saying 80% of men took their life. I do apologise. I meant of suicides, 80% were men. I apologise.
So I think I was fortunate that I got some good help, and my work very gradually came out of that as I got better. So I hope, even though I use a lot of humour in my work is very authentic, because everything I talk about, I've really been through it. But I want to, when I work with people, is to use a little bit of a lightness of touch, because no one wants to be lectured. Nobody wants to say, right, you need to eat this, you mustn't eat this. It's like, no, but I want people to feel good. And any weight loss or any improvements in how they look is a byproduct of good self-esteem.
It's the aesthetic side of things. So when you actually sort of do yourself up to make yourself appear the way you are, is that a self-indulgent thing? Is that because you want to look like that, or is it because you are more concerned about what other people will think if they thought, oh, he looks nearer 50 than you look now? Do you see what I mean? Is it more for you, or is it for other people?
I think it must be for a bit of both. I think that changes as well. I think I mostly do it for myself. For me, it's what I learned through my most challenging times was a lot of what I do when it comes to my appearance is ritual. Like moisturising or washing my hair or putting on a bow tie. I hope you like it. Is, of course, I want people to approve of the way I look because I'm a human being. But I also, for me, it's about self-care. It's about a ritual that I find very soothing and calming. And I think that changes from time to time. So I don't think it's set in stone. So
because there is a balance, isn't there? There are some people who, unfortunately, can take it too far the other way. They are so concerned about what other people think of them that they do what they believe other people expect of them.
Why are you looking at me?
I'm looking around the room.
You both looked at me.
Hang on, I'm looking around the room
Does
here.
the word
okay.
paranoid?
You both go. Yes.
No, I
stretching my
completely.
I tell you what, I won't look at you anymore, James. I won't include you in this conversation.
You see, Miss, can I just say to James's mum, because you're not often here, because James and I work together a lot, but you see, I try to be inclusive. I try, I'm bringing him along, I'm trying to mentor, make him part of the team. So we dared to look at him, now he's upset. Do you understand what I'm trying to deal with, James's mum?
It's because mum is in the room, I think.
Yeah. Freud is, the noise you can hear is
She's
Freud
terrified.
spinning. Freud is just going like that. Right. Tristan, I love it on the front of your book that it says nearly 50 and still getting ID'd. I'm sitting here, I would, if I was selling booze, I'd say, could I see your ID?
I tell you, I was in a pub about 3 days ago, and I said to the barkeep, I think that's the right word now, isn't
Innkeeper, taverner.
Just because you're wearing a bow tie, I don't think one needs to refer to him as barkeep. Oh, of course,
no,
because that's politically correct.
Yeah, that's why I did it. I wasn't being pompous. Or maybe a little bit. But I said, can I get some drinks? And she said, if you're old enough. And she said, are you the local sixth form?
Wow.
And I went, yes. And that was it. Didn't blink an eye.
Were you wearing long trousers at the time?
I was wearing, it was my Just William outfit.
Played by Dennis Waterman, by the way, initially, before he did the Sweeney and everything else.
It was short trousers and a little school blazer with a meek expression on my face.
Worryingly, I can totally believe it. Right. Losing weight. Let's just look at that for a second. He said completely self-centeredly.
Who are you looking at when you say that?
Myself. I'm looking at myself. All right. Losing weight. Well, give me some tips.
So when people come to me asking about weight loss, I normally put that question to one side and ask them a bit more about themselves. Because I think high self-worth, it's not always, but high self-worth, the more you value yourself, the more you value what you eat. So I focus on people's self-esteem and understanding. I don't make food right or wrong, good or bad. There's low-level nutrition, there's high-level nutrition. So I'm encouraging people to make high nutritional choices. That usually fills them up because it's not empty calories.
Yeah.
And from there, you start feeling better about yourself, start realizing how valuable you are and making better food choices. It gets quite practical as well. So I look at, food diaries and make suggestions. People come to my house and we cook together.
Where do you live?
Well,
miles away. Miles now. Give me some ideas of what.
No, let him answer, because actually I think it'd be quite good if we go for a little cooking session.
Yeah, we're coming around.
Yeah, so I'm
no stalking, but whereabouts do you live?
It's fine, I'll blindfold you.
33, the High Street, next to
Yeah, we don't want the full address, just the district would do.
Okay, so I'm in Tring in Hertfordshire half the week, and I'm in Woodford Green another half of the week.
Tring.
Excellent. So you're up near my neck of the woods. This is excellent.
Great. So pop
because I'm in
over now.
Hertfordshire as well. So
Okay, whereabouts?
You're not near Tring.
Oh, right, okay.
I'm nowhere near Tring, I grant you, but I am in Hertfordshire. I'm the south of Hertfordshire, you're north of
Well,
Hertfordshire.
you're kind of almost in Europe.
So I think the key really is to not make it about weight loss, because I think a lot of people, anyone can lose weight. If
they can't.
Well, they can lose a bit of weight, but
No, they
actually,
can't.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'd need to look at your diet. And I would need to ask you what your relationship is with food. Do you eat for comfort or do you eat for nutrition?
I eat because I get really hungry.
Okay.
But is it wrong to eat for comfort?
No. I'm a comfort eater. I just use...
Oh, hello. James's mum's got a point to make.
Well, so far we haven't. Serotonin hasn't been mentioned.
Oh, yes.
And serotonin.
Who's serotonin?
It's the.
Mr. and Mrs. Tonin's
it's
daughter.
what if you have low serotonin, then you have depression, and serotonin lives in your gut and in your stomach. So if you don't have the correct food,
I'm going to start charging you rent.
It will add to your depression.
Yeah, so the book that I've written is about that. So it's the relationship between the nutritional content of food and our brain chemicals. So it isn't, I can't just give a black-white answer when it comes to weight loss, but what I do work with people is to kind of, I have to get to know what their relationship is with themselves and with food, and then we make little changes.
Is there stuff you should absolutely avoid? It sounds a stupid question, but it's important.
Well, I think everything in moderation. I have a 80-20 rule. 80% of the time eat real food that hasn't been processed. 20% of the time have a cupcake. It's got to be about balance. But I really want people to avoid, hydrogenated vegetable oils. I want people to avoid...
What would that be?
Just in most things. So it's highly processed oils and highly processed and refined
Because I
sugars.
go along and I try and I try and avoid sugar, I try and avoid bread when I can, don't have rice, don't have pasta, I'm pretty miserable. What oils? So when we're going along the supermarket, what should we be cooking with?
Well, I use olive oil, I use walnut oil, I use coconut oil, I stir fry with coconut oil. Again, oil is still fat, so I wouldn't be overly consuming it, but we need good fats in our diet. So, a little bit of oil is...
Rapeseed oil, is that good? There's kind of other oils.
There are other oils. I generally stick to really good quality, non-processed oils. So my three favourites are walnut oil, coconut oil, and
does
oil.
it say, I'm sorry to drill down on this, but hey...
Yeah.
Does it say on the bottle or whatever it is, how do you know if it's processed?
So I just go for organic, first cold-pressed oils if I can.
Right.
So that way... and it's not product of 15 different countries.
How expensive is it though?
Not
because
overly,
when you say organic cold pressed olive oil, all I see is dollar signs.
Do you know what? It really winds me. Can I just say, I'm really sorry to butt in here, but it really winds me up when people do have a total misconception that it is somehow expensive to be healthy. If anything, I argue with you that it is actually more expensive to be unhealthy.
I agree.
If you buy everything fresh and you cook it yourself, yes, I know, shock horror, people can cook if they really want to. If you cook it yourself, actually what you do is you make larger quantities, therefore you're being more economical, and it's better for you.
I agree. I mean, yes, you might be paying £5-6 for a bottle of organic. I mean, coconut oil about £5 last year. It can be very inexpensive, and I agree, because so many people say, "Oh, your diet must be really expensive," and I actually tell them what I spend, which isn't a great deal because I'm plant-based. I don't eat meat or dairy, so that cuts some of the costs. I don't eat out a lot because my choices are narrowed.
When you say you're plant-based, does that mean you are vegan?
Yeah.
Or you... Okay, so I didn't know whether or not that meant that you would say eat meat or poultry.
Wait a minute, a nice vegan in the studio.
I know.
Oh my God.
Oh yes.
Oh my.
We should stress that Russ doesn't have much luck with veganism.
Oh no, I get it. I've met some very lovely people that are vegans, and some people that I'm like running for the hills. I'm not a preacher.
I wish we'd have known that.
Now hang on a second. Said vegan's not here to defend, so be careful.
Okay.
All right.
I BBC.
Yeah, I am.
So
I'm also
BBC.
your Jiminy Cricket, so don't underestimate.
I kept the note you passed me, so don't get all cocky with me, Mr. BBC.
Anyway,
Millard, not an ex-lawyer.
So when it comes to, I always say when people take better care of themselves and value themselves more, they generally make better choices, and that is a process. So people don't suddenly lose half a stone in 2 days. That's not always the point. I think when people understand the value of food, what's actually in food, which is, education, people generally start to make better choices over time. And I've had one lady lose 9 stone, which is
what?
Amazing. Yeah.
Well, that was a bit careless.
And that was she hasn't found
Did
it.
she find it?
Down the back of the sofa.
But I think the reason she's successful is because when she talks, she sometimes speaks at my events, and what she says is, I gave her permission to value herself, and then she started seeing herself as valuable. I know it sounds a bit Oprah, but there we go.
No, but Miss B is nodding along with this, so I wonder whether or not...
So I would say, you know what, you're gorgeous the way you are, and choose food that you know has value, because you have value. Now, that really worked for her. For some people, they might be like, I need this and I need that. I don't do meal plans and structure and that. I'm not a nutritionist. I put people in touch with people if they want meal plans. I'm talking about the emotional aspect of eating, and what people's relationship with food is, and how and why that's okay, and how we can make little changes over time.
The way I've got round it is not having the stuff in the fridge.
Well, there we go. If you want to avoid temptation,
I literally don't have it in the fridge at all. And that's the end of it.
It's the same. It's kind of the same argument to be had with cigarettes. If you want to give up smoking, don't buy them.
Yeah.
Because if you buy them, there's a very strong chance you'll be tempted.
Yeah, as Oscar Wilde said, I can resist everything apart from temptation.
Good quote.
Thank you. That's going on the tombstone.
My big thing with food is that I love it. I mean, I used to work in the kitchen. I love food, and it's like, for me, I want to eat all the food. Does that, like, what would I need to change there? There's not one. Like, I'm looking at that cupcake, like, man, I want to eat you.
I suggest gamer tape.
I suppose, again, I don't want to sound like it's not always simplistic. When I talk to people, I'm thinking hours with them, and so
you get to know them.
What is your relationship with food? And let's just talk about it. So when you say you want to eat everything, is there some emotional hunger that you're eating?
Oh, good question.
James's mum's jumping in.
Well, it's food's to do with happiness, isn't it? And sometimes when I'm really tuning into myself, I can even go to a supermarket and I'll reach for something and I won't pick it up because it's in there.
Yep.
But you have to be totally at calm and peace to be able to operate on that level. I
completely agree. One of the things I try and encourage people to do is start to have a relationship with what they eat and how they feel, like a true relationship. So I've got to the point now, I know exactly what I want when I want it, and it's usually I'm not overeating. So if you feel that you are overeating, there's ways of kind of what's going on and how do you feel about this? How do you feel about yourself? Are you in touch with your emotions? When you grab food, are you filling a hole, or are you just hungry? Are you bored? Are you
mostly bored?
Bored, okay. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you know.
And you overeat, because when you've had your food and you go like that, and I found that quite a few people overeat just to have
some people want to eat to become numb.
Yes.
And I want to eat to become energized and to nurture myself. It's just a very interesting topic.
We know how they say, and I appreciate we're hurtling towards the ad break here. So get your thinking cap on, so to speak.
I've already got my cap on.
On top of that cap.
Okay.
Think of the answer to the following question before we go to the break.
Okay.
Where does overindulgence begin and moderation end? And on that note.
You're listening to Russ Kane on Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hello, I'm Lawrence Davis. I'm the proud owner of Started Cigars in Mayfair and Knightsbridge. For the past 60 years, we've been providing the world's best Cuban cigars. When it comes to cigars, there's no other than Started Cigars from Mayfair and Knightsbridge. We at Starters would like to wish Men's Radio Station every support in their task for helping men's emotional and mental well-being. Check them out. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's Radio Station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
Let me tell you about Jermyn Street Theatre. We are the smallest theatre in the West End, only 70 seats. We are a registered charity and not grant-aided, run by a small team of volunteers and trustees. Jermyn Street Theatre is a hidden gem. It combines the comfort and convenience of the West End with the intimacy of a studio. Every seat has a perfect view of the stage, and even a whisper is audible. This is a secret theatre in the heart of the West End, once found, never forgotten.
Slick 50 Barbershop is in Westcliff-on-Sea, Essex. Elaine, specialist in retro haircuts, has been trading since 1987. Music and lifestyle are her inspiration. You can also purchase merchandise and Toots Sweet Pomade. The shop is open Tuesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday. Please call 01702 390 916 to book your haircut. Visit barbershoprockabilly.co.uk, Slick 50 Barbershop on Instagram. Gracias.
Not ready for making tax digital? Struggling to keep up with changes? Or do you simply need a friendly and reliable face to handle your accounting needs? With over 20 years of experience, BBK Partnership in 5 London areas provide personal advice, and all our partners are readily available in person and by phone at times that suit you. Give BBK a call today, 0208 216 2520, or visit our website, bbkca.com.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Indeed, they do. And thank you to the South of France for producing all our, David Mindel down there for producing all our jingles.
You'll never know how much we appreciate it.
You hate them and I love them. And next time David Mindell's in London, he's going to beat you up. That's all there is to it. Special
live
guest
at the Men's
live
studio
on Facebook Live. By the way,
live abuse you can't beat.
I gotta apologise, because if you're watching Facebook Live, and I didn't understand what they were talking about, and I just looked at it. It looks like we've got cat's ears and cat's whiskers, and I have genuinely, outside of voodoo, no idea what the hell that is. But, you know, we're discussing like some pretty serious subjects and we're sitting there with cat's ears and cat whiskers on. I mean,
I'm really sorry.
Welcome to my world, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the chaos in which I live.
It's a catastrophe. Thank you.
Don't
move on. It encourages me. Don't do it.
What you were supposed to do there, special guest Tristan Lee, was go...
Well, there was lots of that, so I thought I'd put a little bit of something in.
That was the...
called laughter, which would be the normal response to humour.
It was the tumbleweed just blowing through the studio after Phil's joke.
You want to be grateful that nerves manifest themselves as laughter.
What else would they be?
Anyway.
Okay, moving on. So special guest who's infuriated me because he honestly looks... like he could be 18, 19. He's nearly 50.
Oh, he's aged 6 years since the last time he complimented his age.
It's just ludicrous. Ludicrous. He is Tristan Lee, and if you want to find him on Twitter, by the way, it's at Real Tristan Lee.
What, you mean there are impersonators?
Yes.
There's a couple, isn't there?
And there's
goodness.
Instagram is Real Tristan Lee.
I can only dream that someone would impersonate me.
Who?
Well, you've actually done quite well, actually. You've got Russell Kane out there, who's, I suppose, really...
Yes.
But still.
It's fantastic, isn't it? Tristan Lee is a gorgeousness coach. Yeah, a gorgeousness coach. But underneath the kind of jokey title, there's some very, very serious issues going on there. James's mum...
She's had to step outside for some fresh air. She can't cope with this level of gorgeousness, apparently.
She can't take it, to be honest with you. She's been out gorgeous.
This will be my last appearance.
This is what?
On Men's Radio Station. Okay, I think after today.
You really are going bright red again. Will you stop it, please? It's most undignified.
It is the most bizarre thing I think I've ever witnessed.
It's the
because your mum has absolutely no filters. There's no filter at all.
No, there is. There's cat filter on Facebook.
Yeah, there's a cat filter.
Oh, yeah, that's
right. Right. So, now, you were mentioning, and it's Men's Radio Station. Okay, let's just put our foot in a kind of tricky area. Moisturising. And I don't want everyone sitting at home going, oh, for God's sake. I don't just hear Tristan Lee out, please. It's true, though. If you say moisturise, people go, oh, jeez.
Well, I think a lot of people just think it's kind of a very dull conversation. However, I understand that some people don't want to do it. It's fine. I'm not forcing people to moisturise.
I moisturise.
What do you use?
E45.
Okay, good.
I go into Tesco or Boots and just buy a pot the size of a Dulux paint tin and stick my head in it, basically.
Isn't E45 a preservative?
No, that's creosote, which I also use, but that's a totally different matter. I just use E45, yeah.
I am really into skincare, partly because I just enjoy the whole thing, it's the whole ritual of it. Also, I have very oily skin.
You've mentioned this whole... it's interesting, because you've mentioned in the conversation several times the words ritual, and I just have this vision. I'm not quite sure what that means.
It does sound a bit bizarre, doesn't it?
Sounds a little bit... I don't know what it means.
Well, for me, it's like 10 minutes where it's a routine, I should say, more than a ritual. Okay. It's just like the process of, putting...
Go on, I'm gonna ask. Go on, what do you...
I'm just impressed that it takes 10 minutes.
I mean, I say 10 minutes. I mean... I can do it take longer. For me, that's just relaxing. I use a lot of products. I'm not your typical user because I really love it, and I use various lotions and potions that would be too much for most people, especially if they haven't ever used anything.
So you are die-hard potion and lotion user.
Yeah, I just love it. I love it. Yeah, I don't.
But you find it therapeutic, though, don't you?
I find it therapeutic. It's not a chore. Yeah. I don't feel I have to do it. I do have oily skin, as I say, so if I don't take care of it, I am prone to spots. So
yeah, I find it's interesting you say that. I find everything a chore.
Do you?
Just before maybe
everything a chore.
Perhaps if before we go into sort of potentially what your ritual actually is, you may recall that just before the break there, I asked you to maybe explain to us where exactly overindulgent begins and everything in moderation stops.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Some people, I think, naturally know when they're full. Some people really don't know when they're full. And, that's why I would always suggest people, it's the practical things you can do. It's very easy to overeat. you're eating. Most people are eating quite quickly. There's usually a lot of food on offer. Most people are eating too much. Most people are watching, TV with food on their lap or eating crisps out of a big packet. I want people to sit at a table, turn their phones off, turn the TV off, and actually taste the food. Eat off smaller plates. Chew their food. Don't make as much food. And you'll probably find, if you go to a fancy restaurant and you eat smaller portions, but you're kind of hopefully satisfied. I want people to feel satisfied because they generally feel better. Most people are eating mindlessly. Which is, I'm just shoving my face full of food, I've eaten too much. And I don't think it's always about enjoyment. It's certainly not always about quality.
And also, actually, there was one time when I was trying to lose a few pounds a couple of years back before I was going off to a friend's wedding in the middle of the Middle East, which was sort of very, very nice, very glamorous place, and one had to try and look one's best, which doesn't always work. It was not Eastbourne. Anyway, one particular fact that I did learn, which I didn't realise at all, don't know how I've managed to go 30-odd years without knowing this, is that one's brain does not necessarily keep up with one's stomach. So in other words, when you eat a fair amount of food, when you are actually full, your brain doesn't know you're full, maybe for as long as an hour after eating. Actually, if you halve the amount of food, you'll probably still feel full.
Well, I think most people are eating too quickly. They're eating too much big portions. It's kind of a cliche, but, wait 20 minutes before you have more. Or don't cook as much. Most people are cooking too much, and they
say, I don't want to go to waste.
Is there an ideal portion? Because my doctor this week, on a completely unrelated subject, said you should only be eating what you can actually hold or cup in your hands, which I'd never heard of before.
It depends how big your hands are.
Well, there we go. He had big hands. There we are. James, you're stuffed straight away.
You got big hands.
What would Donald Trump? Donald Trump would never eat.
Why is he? He should be really skinny then.
Well, in that case,
I think it's very different. Some people's have bigger stomachs because of their size. You might be a slim person with a big stomach, might be a big person with a small stomach. There's too many variables, I think, to be too generalised about that.
But you can't have too much vegetables. Is that true?
I want to eat food that's easy to digest, so I'm not feeling bloated. Because of the diet I'm on, it doesn't take, I'm not eating cheese or meat, so it's quite easy for me to digest food. I think I ask people, well, how do you want to feel when you eat? If you want to feel, most people want to feel full but not too full. They want to feel that was tasty, and they don't want to feel bloated or tired afterwards. So why
do people say, "Oh, I've got a food coma"? They always say that.
That's overindulgence.
Well, it's overeating, and it's not always at how much you've eaten; it's what you've eaten. If people, like a classic Sunday lunch or Christmas meal, it's usually a lot of meat.
Yeah.
And a lot of calories. So your body goes into, oh my God, I need to digest this. And all the blood rushes to your stomach, and then you feel tired. Now, that's sometimes quite nice.
But that is, in essence, what people refer to as food coma. It is actually, seriously, the body trying to digest
your body
food.
Is literally, and it can be quite a pleasurable thing if it's a cold day and you fall asleep in front of the Queen's speech or something. But for most people,
After Her Majesty's speech, how dare you? Do you mind? Treachery.
Sorry, Majesty. But some people like that. I don't like that feeling, particularly, because I don't like feeling drowsy after I eat food, particularly, especially if I'm out and about.
Yeah.
I'd rather feel kind of energised and comfortably full. But I think that it takes time to notice what that is for you, because it's a different portion size for different people.
I got a question, as I always inevitably do. What is tofu made of? I have no idea.
It's soya bean.
I ate it yesterday.
Yeah. Soya bean.
Is it any good? Was it terrible?
I like it. As vegan, that's one of the things I eat quite a lot of. But by itself, it's really bland.
Isn't it edamame? Isn't it an edamame bean that's turned into a paste? And
there's various options with that.
You kind of get this white squishy cube, don't you?
But if you put a little bit of coconut oil on that, cut it into strips, put it in the oven with a bit of turmeric, it can be crispy. There's ways of marinating it. You can do lots of things with it. It is quite bland, but it has quite a lot of protein in it.
Oh, do it with a bit of spring onion, a little bit of teriyaki sauce. Oh, it's
amazing.
Lovely.
So I had it yesterday, and I was, I'm trying slowly to introduce some of these things into my diet. Yeah. But I was actually sitting there, and I turned to my partner and said, we were at dinner yesterday. I said, what is this? I don't know what it's. I know what it is. I have no idea what the hell it's made from. Could be, old reused Dunlop tyres from a Formula 1 race. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an acquired taste. Not everyone likes it, but you can add.
It doesn't seem to have any. It acquires the taste of whatever's around it.
It does, and again, if you can you can give it some texture if you make it crispy.
Is it low in calories and all of that? You see, there's a theme.
Yeah, it's lowish. Depends
well, I was going to say, don't deep fry it. It probably doesn't have that many low calories.
I would say it's pretty low calorie. I'm not sure how much a block.
Low-ish.
Well, again, it depends what you have with it.
Right. Well, just veg, really.
Okay, then that should be fine.
Right, okay.
You have like 2 bottles of wine with it, though.
No, I've had to ease up.
Okay.
I've had to ease up because I enjoy drinking, and I don't drink for any particular side. I just.
But surely the
enjoy
whiskey's still okay.
Is whiskey all right? No.
Well, no, how much are you drinking?
Well,
He's still here, isn't he?
Whiskey sour would be okay.
No, whiskey sour.
I'm all for moderation. I just think I just want people to enjoy their lives. And I want people to enjoy food. Alcohol's great, chocolate's great, but quality rather than quantity, if you can. And just be aware that if you are, drinking a lot of something, that might not be so good for you.
Because they're saying, like, white wine is just full of empty calories. Well, and if you're going to have to drink wine, drink red. Mm-hmm. You're nodding sagely.
Well, I mean, I don't know how much that's true. I mean, it's calories are calories. It's still empty calories. There's, it's got a little bit of red grape in it, so maybe there's some antioxidants. But wine is wine. I love a glass of wine. I just don't need to drink very much of it.
See, what I've never understood is that I always believe that wine should be something that complements food. Mm-hmm. I don't see wine as something that should be drunk on its own. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think it turns into liquid calories. Because if it's sort of aided by the food that you're eating, and it genuinely does go with the food that one is eating at the time, then it can complement a meal very nicely. But it's this notion of when people say, I'm going to go home and open a bottle, I don't get that at all.
How else are you going to drink if you don't open the bottle?
You know what I mean.
Carton, maybe.
Wouldn't it just... bottle with a straw.
Doesn't it just add to the calories of the meal? If you're having a glass of wine, isn't that just extra calories on top of it, whatever it is you're eating?
I think it depends on which way you look at it. If you have several glasses with it, then maybe even one glass.
I think a lot of people, especially in this country, are kind of, maybe, again, a cliche, maybe the French drink wine in a slightly different way. It's about the flavour and it's about the right wine for the meal. And they're not drinking very much. And I think... for me, that's how I prefer to enjoy wine. I'm not someone who's going to drink a couple of bottles of wine when I get home from work.
No.
But that, I get it, because we want to unwind. But there are other things. It's about, we all get into habits, and some of those habits really work for us. But accumulatively, 2 bottles of wine a night or half a bottle of wine a night, it's not going to kill you, but over time, it's not going to be great for you. So it's about looking at the habits that work for us and looking for at the habits that, over time, it's maybe... let's just drink at weekends, or maybe have smaller wine glasses, because the wine glasses these days, when I was a kid in the 1830s, we were literally drinking out of thimbles.
They were thimbles. This is so true.
Mr. Kane, you either look mesmerised or you look shell-shocked at what you've just heard. I'm trying to work out what it is.
Which way?
No, I don't know. I'm trying to work out what it is. Are you sort of now trying to rethink? I can't work out whether or not the cogs are turning, whether or not you're trying to... No, I'm trying to say whether or not it's a case of you're trying to rethink the way that your attitude towards alcohol is by hearing this.
Yeah.
I think these are things you've already thought it would look like.
No, there's a lot of things. Like, it was interesting because I was thinking, all right, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll try and just drink at the weekends. Except, for me, of course, Sunday's a work day. Sunday's like one of the busiest days, especially for Men's Radio Station. Although all the other days seem to now be catching up. I see more James than I do my own kids. But... I'm trying to narrow.
Maybe putting a bit
not
of structure
drink every
in.
day.
So I would say, what? Let's not go from let's say you're drinking every day, and I would never say to a client, right, stop drinking. That's ridiculous. Or I'll just drink once a month. I mean, I'm saying, well, what if you're currently drinking 7 days a week? Drink 3 days a week. If you're currently drinking out of glasses this big, drink out of glasses that big. If you currently drink lots of alcohol at home, get rid of some of it, or drink it and don't buy any more. So it's got to be a gradual process. And I normally would get people to write down, okay, well, this is my structure. Create a little plan, which is, okay, I'm only going to drink Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. I'm not going to drink on Fridays and Saturdays, and I can drink on Sunday. But how much? And what are you drinking out of? Who are you drinking with? So that you have a bit more control. So you can really enjoy alcohol and use alcohol for what it's meant to do, which is to add a little bit of spice to your life.
That's what it is. I don't sit at home and drink. That's very, very rare. Very rare. Very rare. That I would do that. I
think it's an interesting conversation.
Not even a toss of whiskey. Not even a little toss of whiskey.
Very rare.
Really? Wow.
Very rare. When I go to the Soho Whiskey Club, who we've had George in here, and we love them. We love him. I'll have maybe 2 glasses. That's it. I'll have 2 glasses.
Wow. No, that's my downfall. I probably less so in the summer, but certainly the winter. I've no hesitation to go home and have a little toss of whiskey.
That's
Absolutely
a little
not.
tot.
Yeah,
You're
I
not-
think
you're
a
not sitting
little,
there with
little
bottle of it.
Yeah, a little snifter's fine.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I do. It's quite sad, but because I know it's the thing. I'd like to have a glass of wine when I'm cooking sometimes.
Yeah.
That's when I enjoy it most. That kind of just a few sips. So I sometimes, because I know you have one, you have another one. So I sometimes buy those one bottle.
The little
glass.
ones.
Yeah, it's kind of tragic.
But is that tragic or is that sensible?
No, it's sensible.
That's really
But when I'm in, a well-known supermarket, and I've got my little one glass bottle of wine, and they ask for ID, A, it's embarrassing, and B, it's like, yeah, I'm just drinking this.
Out of interest, what reaction do you get when you do show the ID to people?
I film it usually, and people are just like, no.
Do they feel really guilty afterwards?
They look embarrassed and surprised.
It is, but I wasn't joking. I thought I was surprised when Pete Cohen, our previous guest, said he was 49 because he looked mid-30s tops. And then you came in, and honestly, if you said to me you were like 19, 20, I'd go, yeah, to be nearly 50 has... I wasn't acting that. I was floored. Absolutely flawed. Because even the picture on your book, I mean, you look like
how
a
long
member
ago
of
was that taken?
Last year?
I mean, you look like a
Stop
member
it.
of you look like
really?
the original lineup for Take That when they were kids. When they were
I'm like
kids.
Ginger Robbie Williams.
But
Without
seeing you
the
sitting here just in the studio, it's extraordinary. Even the picture doesn't do you justice. It's amazing. So it's interesting when somebody talks the talk, but walks the walk.
For me,
That's
because
what's important.
often when I'm doing radio shows, people are like, oh, well, are you telling everyone they should not age, or everyone should look like you, or that getting older is bad? I'm like, no. What I'm saying is, for me, gorgeousness is an inside job. Aging ultimately is an attitude rather than how you look. It just happens to be that genetically I do look young, but that's not the aim. The aim is when we get older, it's very tempting to sort of narrow our horizons.
Why?
And I'm trying to encourage people to broaden their horizons.
I want to broaden this conversation because something happened to me the other way. I was in a very heavy PR meeting, and then the woman who was leading the meeting said, well, of course, you are the heritage generation. She nearly got the company pencil in her ear, and she didn't know how near she was. But it made me think, it's a heritage. Oh, yeah. F off. That's what I really thought.
For some reason, when you say that, I think of heritage route masters that were introduced into London.
I'm thinking of English heritage.
It ain't good. It's like, how come you're still breathing? The way that I took it. How come, you got up the stairs, Russ, to the meeting. Fantastic. Well done. Well done you, and you're not dribbling. But here's the thing. Why is
lie
it...
down?
You're all right. We're asleep. Do you want to go to the toilet? It's like...
Sounds fun. I'd like that.
I came out and I walked there around Soho and I thought, shit. Anyway, the thing was this. Why is it in this country that we are so obsessed with youth? Obsessed with it?
I think human beings have always been obsessed with youth.
Yeah, really.
Maybe it's taken on a new dimension now with social media and stuff. But, people have always celebrated youth. Partly it's genetic. We are drawn towards young people because they look healthy and reproductive worthy.
And there's loads of Greek gods about aging.
So there's
isn't there,
just this
and
whole
beauty
thing of
But that's
like
not exactly
youth.
newfound now,
Youth
is
in our
That's
DNA
saying
that we're
it's
attracted
been-
to it. We're attracted to young, smooth
But
faces.
the media has kind of gone to the situation, and I'm not just talking about myself and stuff like that. I'm really not. But the media is like, if you're 30 plus, forget it. It's like Logan's Run, a film.
I remember.
The film was where the premise of which is when you're 30, you're killed. Although they don't realise they're being killed. They think they're being reborn.
Yeah.
No, they're being lasered to death. And then I think Michael York goes on the run, hence Logan's Run. And it's like, if you're forget it, you don't have any part. And they're getting rid of excellent presenters. I'm not going to do any names, but there's certain people you would like to see on the TV. A few exceptions, like Sir David Attenborough, who is God, obviously. He's there because he is Sir David Attenborough. Other people who have really got a lot to say, a valuable contribution, just thrown under the bus. They don't
I get
care.
it. We want fresher faces, and it seems to be that women are more victim to that than men. But still, people want to. That seems to be, and I don't agree with it.
But do they really? If they really aren't, because not everybody is 24 or 22. There are people, oddly enough, who are 50 plus who were not obsessed with seeing all these. I mean, and some of them are very good, and some of them are complete idiots. I mean, let's be honest about it. Some of these people are just talentless twerps.
I think it's a difference. It's that fine balance. They want a new face and they want a fresh face. You know, they want a younger face or they want a different face. Or it's TV and media. It's all about the new.
It's when that same presenter comes back with a new face. That's when you have to start questioning what's going on.
So
in the
where
world.
did you get that face from? It's very nice.
Buy one, get one free.
I do that with my stand-up. I say it's so nice to see so many new faces and so many old faces,
and all on the same bodies.
All on the same.
I listened to something today about on radio. I like Radio 4.
Yes, of course.
I don't sound embarrassed by that.
I'm not embarrassed
good.
because I don't know how to tune my car into any other radio station, so I'm okay with that. And so I'm really okay with that. And they were talking about human beings, and robots, and they were saying that Cher was 63% robot.
Cher.
And I was like, I'm okay with that.
What? Well, the singer.
As in, because she's been so adapted.
Oh, I see.
As in, she's not human.
No, my particular favourite quotation was once from Joan Rivers, when she said that she wasn't allowed. There were certain parts of her weren't allowed into a nightclub. That was just genius. That was utter genius.
My favourite Joan Rivers quote about Cher is she's had so many facelifts. She's got a goatee.
Yeah. Oh, God. Anyway,
and love Cher.
Yeah.
Is it a bad... See, it's interesting because you've got the genetic makeup, no pun intended, that you look ludicrously young. But that's partly because of your regime, your rituals, as you call it, because you're adhering to your lifestyle, but also because of the DNA from your ancestors and parents and everything else. You're very, very lucky. So are you against somebody like... Let's not pick Cher, but I mean, when you see people with obvious cosmetic work, you think that's ridiculous, or do you think good for you?
Sometimes again, it's a very nuanced conversation. It's very easy to go, oh, they're bad, they're good, they shouldn't have done it, they should have done it. I want people to move if they want to move in that direction, have great self-esteem, have really good health, and cosmetic surgery should be the icing on the cake, and it should be subtle, ideally. Although some people do not want to look subtle, especially certain women and certain men maybe feel that they want a look which is very altered. It's their aesthetic. I was watching I watch kind of crazy programs about things like that, and people just do crazy stuff. They don't want to look good. They don't want to look natural. They want to stand out. They want to be like a Victorian freak show, and it works. So I see it, and I think that's just a bad job. And I feel for people, and some people want to look like that. They want to look.
Do they genuinely, or they just go to a rubbish doctor and they come out looking like... Because it's always been my thing, sometimes you're sitting there, but especially in America, and they obviously think they look great, and you're just thinking, well, you just look like...
Let's have a whip round, we'll buy them a mirror.
Yeah.
Well, if you go to LA, which I do quite often because I've got friends out there, everyone looks like that. So if everyone around you is nipped and tucked and pulled, and...
They must love you in LA.
Well, they
I mean, don't get me wrong, they must love you here, but they must love you in LA as well.
I've got a bow tie and I have an English accent, so...
That's it. You could... I become sort of Noel Coward.
Just a cup of Earl Grey tea.
And sometimes he's not even asleep.
What?
But if everyone around you is looking that way, it's a look, isn't it? I don't agree with it, but whatever makes you happy... But I just think...
Now, you were saying about making you happy, your rituals make you happy. I'm very aware of the time.
Okay.
Please, can you give us an insight into your regime, what you do?
Okay, so I mean, in a very loose... I have a routine that's about food, I have a routine that's about fitness, and I have a routine about skincare. So I exercise every day, just about.
And what do you do?
I see a personal trainer. So I do a combination of kind of high-intensity cardio and weight training.
Right.
And I do that because I love it. It makes me feel fantastic. I eat very, very healthy. I always take my own food. I brought my own food today, which I've eaten already, which is a nice kind of cauliflower.
Is that in the Greg's bag?
Sorry. How did the Greg's bag. I'm not allowed.
That was quite good, actually. Very good.
Very good touche. And then skincare-wise,
other junk food organisations are available.
Junk? That's rude.
Yeah, I was very thrilled that we were at a vegan sausage roll. I was like, whoop whoop, I'm going there.
Vegan sausage
roll. Did you try it?
No.
All right, just checking.
Anyway, so you go to the gym, you make your own food.
I make my own food, and I take care of my skin morning and evening.
Right, so what is it, for example...
Phil really wants to know what you do with your face. Go on.
No, because I think there will be people who are intrigued.
I suppose, sometimes I talk about it, and other times I don't as much, because I'm like, if I start talking about what I actually do, people will fall asleep. because I use a lot of products. But
with 5 minutes of this show left, if they're still awake, it's a miracle. Go for it.
So I cleanse my face thoroughly. I use a face scrub 3 times a week. I use like a hydrating face mask once a week. I have various serums that I use occasionally. I'm really into serums.
What's a serum? You're speaking like a different language to me now.
So usually it's an enriched oil or lotion that has active ingredients in it.
And what
do they
you rub it on
really
your face?
work?
Yeah, what's that?
Do they really? Because every time there's
that.
no, because he looks.
What's wrong with
12.
you? For goodness
No, I tell you why I'm asking, because every time the advert comes on TV, it says enriched with, and then they do some word that you've never heard of that goes on and fills the TV screen.
They're not miracle. It's not going to stop you from aging. It might improve the texture of your skin. It might feed your skin. I always see skin as a bit like a table, like just a rough table that needs a good oiling. Good. No jokes about we all need a good oiling, but it is about.
I don't know.
You went there, not us.
I was about thinking getting laid, but that's just me. I think,
okay,
come on, it's a table.
I was thinking chuck a cloth over you, to be honest.
Embarrassed.
Yeah,
James is loving it
set you for
because your
dinner,
mum's not here.
Yeah, Mum can't.
I couldn't do that gag if your mum was in the room.
No, you could not.
I wouldn't do that out of courtesy.
But I think that there's a lot of these lotions that say erases fine lines. They don't. Makes you change.
Why are they allowed to say that?
I don't know.
One quick question,
It's
then
misleading.
we go.
It's misleading.
One quick question is a lot of the adverts, and I feel I'm furious on behalf of women on this. I think I'm allowed to be, and it's a theme I constantly come back to. They do these rejuvenation, this, and you use that, and the girls. I use the word girls advisedly on the adverts or in the magazine adverts, the print ads. They're probably 19. They're maybe 22 tops. It's ridiculous for a woman of 40 plus. You're not going to be 21 again. It's unfair of the product makers.
Advertising, you're selling a dream, and no, I don't agree with it. I think it's very misleading. But people, I think they've done trials of having. I mean, I know certain companies are doing it, like Dove and other companies, where they're actually showing real people and real sizes. But they've done research. People want to see beautiful people on television, even if they know they haven't used that product. Like you haven't used that product to get that look. You haven't. That is professional makeup and a very young face and amazing lighting.
And I think we should also stress as well that there are advertising standard authorities out there who would not allow these kind of things to be said if it weren't any truth behind them somewhere along the lines.
There's got to be some truth.
Absolutely. No, but that's what I mean. There must be some truth along the line somewhere along there. No pun intended.
Quite vague.
Advertising that is most definitely allowed, though, is where people can find you and what the name of your
yes, that's what we want to know.
For you to do.
Did you see what I did there? Yes,
Yeah,
that's what we call it. That's what we call in the trade a link.
I liked it. It's seamless.
Thank you.
Well, I'm
not anymore. It's not, but it was.
Very happy to be found. I am on Facebook at Real Tristan Lee, on all my social media at Real Tristan Lee. I am called the Gorgeousness Coach.
I just love it so much. It's just the greatest name.
It's a nervous laughter, don't I?
I wasn't sure why.
It's just
he feels threatened.
Ever since I got this, and I get all my notes sent through by James, and I just cracked up.
That's what I want.
I just like it. I like it.
If I can put a smile on people's faces, then I'm happy to do so. But yeah, you can find me that way.
Well, I think you certainly put a smile on ours, so thank you very much for coming in, sir. And will you come back again?
I would love to.
Excellent.
It's been a pleasure.
To that.
That's great. And when's the book out? Another book out?
So Munch Move Moisturiser is out already, and then Fed Up is out in June.
Brilliant.
Mr. Kane, am I very, very quickly allowed to shoehorn in that I'm jumping ship tomorrow? Just temporarily.
Go ahead.
Thank you so very much indeed. I will be on Judy May's Listening on Women's radio station tomorrow.
You will?
So I will, so there you go.
You might as well just stay here.
I will. I might sleep.
Stay on my back for 5 minutes and it's all...
I've jumped ship. Just temporarily, though.
Right. Thank you so much to all our special guests. Thank you to Tristan Lee, the gorgeousness coach. I'll never get over that. I'm Russ Kane. You've been listening to me, to Mr. Phil Dave with his new haircut. Boy Wonder producer James Blake. James Blake's mum, Mrs. Blake. Yeah. And thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Until we meet again, have fun.
I have a confession to make. When I read